Welcome to Filmoscopy. Quick impression, Elmer Fudd singing Linkin Park's Breaking the Habit. 'Cause I'm breaking the habit tonight. I'm Lance. That's been stuck in my head for like 2 days. Like, breaking the habit.
I don't know
All
what
right.
I'm fighting for. Or why I
Oh, why
have
I
to
had
scream. That's awesome.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. So this is Filmoscopy, a off the rails podcast where three friends mix nerd, dude, bro, and probably toxic opinions while discovering new movies and or rewatching old movies that one of the members has picked out. My name is Lance. I am the host, the narrator, the director of this episode, and my two co-hosts slash producers slash whatever, Owen
Yo, what's up?
and Cody.
Yeah, the podcast where three bros argue over which geriatric is going to be better for running our country for the next 4 years.
Yeah. So let's not go there. Anywho, welcome to this episode. This episode is very near and dear to my heart, and it's going to pick up, I guess, since we already started one of the series. It's going to pick up and continue on for at least a year's worth of my episodes. So a third of this podcast for the next year is going to be covered this franchise. But first, I wanted to jump into, before we name drop the movie, which you've already clicked on because it's on the title. I want to talk about The Last Dance, the new Venom trailer that was dropped this week.
Knock, knock, let the devil in, me
So-
never in as I've ever been.
So we're going to go ahead and start out with least excited to most excited opinions, and I know how this is going to go. So, Owen, what were your initial thoughts of the trailer?
Of the trailer for what? Sorry.
The Last Dance. Were you not listening to me, you fucker?
It was. Oh,
Venom,
you're talking about
bitch.
the Venom thing. My bad. I didn't know it was called The Last Dance.
How bad did you want to fuck that horse?
It made me horny. It looked alright. I mean, I think we've already talked about it. I'm kind of neutral on Venom, but it looked okay. Miss Chin made me horny. She's so
How
horny.
dare you? How dare you not be more excited for it?
All right, Cody, what was your opinion?
I was disappointed. Yeah, I don't, so like, it feels like we're going backwards, right? We talked about this briefly over text, but it feels like we had Venom 1, which was like a decent starting point. My problems with it was, we're like, well, it's really just Venom against a bunch of like other more boring symbiotes, and then we get to like the next step up, which is Carnage, which is I think what every Venom fan wanted. And while yes, that movie also has its issues, it was still a step in the right direction. But now it feels like we're stepping back to Venom fighting more just boring symbiotes. And I get it. They couldn't figure out a way to get Spider-Man in this, apparently. There's rumor about Peter Parker being like a 10-year-old kid or some bullshit in this movie. It's stupid. So, like, my hope, going all the way back to, 2017, or whenever we first learned about the first Venom movie, was that it would be Venom and Carnage, and Venom and Spider-Man. And I just feel so let down by, it's going to be Null as the main villain. And yes, there's probably going to be other symbiote villains in there, like, what is it, Scream, I think, or Shriek, whatever. But yeah, just watching I know like everyone's flipping out about the symbiote horse. Like to me, it's like okay, so this scene will last 10 seconds on screen. Um, I don't know. I just right now my excitement is like really low for this film.
All right. Well, this is where the fanboy in me comes out because um, this little wagon that could, this little train that could, the Venom solo movies are about to complete a trilogy, and everybody's wishing, still hoping that this movie fails because they think Sony will have to be forced to sell Spider-Man back to Disney, which is not going to happen. But I have a feeling that's why Tom Holland wasn't ever permitted to be in these movies because Disney wasn't going to allow it. And I think they
I
did
don't think it's
film
up to
a Tom
Disney
Holland's.
though. I
I
honestly
think
don't
it
think
is.
it's
I
up
mean,
to Disney.
there was a partnership at the time though.
Yeah, but sure, but
You know what I'm
you
saying?
know,
There was a partnership. I don't think they can because I believe it was rumored in the first movie, but they had filmed a scene with Tom Holland for the Venom movie. But then Disney said you need to take that out. So there is like Disney does have this thing, and Disney and Sony doesn't want to ruin the relationship with Disney because obviously they get to let Spider-Man play with all the Avengers.
yeah, which at this
Um,
point means almost nothing considering the MCU is just like slowly dipping.
yeah,
So
well, I knew it kind of would at some point. It wasn't going to last forever,
I mean, I'm excited.
but
I'm thrilled for Deadpool and Wolverine, but it's like I'm not really giving Disney credit for Deadpool and Wolverine. You know what I mean? Because like Ryan Reynolds is the one that kind of I feel like Ryan Reynolds is the one that kind of leads those films anyway, whether it was with Fox or now with Disney. But you know, so Deadpool and Wolverine will probably do really well, but I don't. Kevin Feige doesn't need to like get a big head over that. You know what I mean?
yeah, I I feel like again, and like I said, I was arguing with somebody in the YouTube comments because this is what I do, and someone was like, "Yeah, Morbius and Madam Web really flunked out. This Venom 3 is gonna be fucking terrible. It's not gonna make any money, and there'll be all this other shit." Because it was there's a YouTube channel. I'm trying to remember what that fucking cuck is named, but it's the video I've sent you guys. They'll sit there and break down all the Easter eggs. Screen
Filmoscopy
Crush.
podcast.
That's who it is.
You
Yeah,
should
Philosophy Podcast.
you
No,
should
it's Screen Crush. And
you,
the dude on there, I can't remember his name. He's the main guy. He'll sit there and when he talks about this Venom stuff, he's like, always like, he actually had a lawyer who's a MCU fan on the video talking for 30 fucking minutes when they were reviewing Madam Web, saying like, well, why can't what can Disney do to keep Sony from releasing these movies because it's hurting the Disney brand.
oh my
And this
god.
dude, like, he put out this whole thing. He's like, yeah, Madam Web's not making. He's talking to this lawyer. He goes, and Venom 3's probably going to fail. And I'm like, where the fuck is this coming from? And everybody's using the overall number. And we talked about this in the past podcast.
That argument is so piss poor. Like, oh, it's hurting Disney's brand. No, the fuck, it's not. Like, Disney is hurting Disney's brand because Disney is now in another like slump where they have been putting out mediocre films for the last maybe 4 or 5 years, and it screams it when you see like what's the last MCU movie to cross $1 billion? Homecoming or not Homecoming? Far From Home, right?
No, No Way Home.
No Way Home. Yeah, sorry, I was getting them confused. No Way Home is the last one to cross $1 billion in conjunction with Sony. Okay, none of their other MCU films have done that since, right? They put out, and it's not just even the MCU stuff. Star Wars has long been criticized for how they've been handling it. Yeah, they get like a hit here and there. Like apparently the Acolyte is really good, right? And they'll put out stuff like the Acolyte or Andor or Mandalorian, but then they'll turn around and they'll put out shit like fucking the Book of Boba Fett or the Last Jedi. You know, like so they're Disney fucks Disney over all the time. Even like Pixar right now.
Yeah.
Bob Iger came out and was like, yeah, don't expect original movies from Pixar anytime soon. It's all going to be sequel shit. all of it, because they gave them a stretch of time where, like, people on the internet online were so happy. Oh, Pixar's coming out with all original movies. It's not going to be sequels. It's going to be amazing. And all of them fell flat. Every single fucking one of them. And then, so now they're like, oh, well, guess what? You're getting Toy Story 5. And you're probably going to get The Incredibles 3. And here comes Inside Out 2. And by the way, our Disney animation stuff is also going to be the same with Moana 2. Did we need a Moana 2? Probably not. Watching the trailer for that, it looks like more of the same. Which necessarily isn't necessarily a bad thing. But Moana, to me, is the best Disney animated film in the last 10 years. And it's like, so you're literally just milking that cash cow that you had from before because you've been fucking up so bad with everything else. So, like, for anyone to say, like, Sony is fucking over Disney's brand or whatever, it's just complete ignorance. Like, and we can all be fans of these new movies, but they're not successful enough. Like, I love Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, but, it is what it is.
And the thing is with them, like, they're MCU fanboys. And I'm thankful because Sony did do this. I got a Venom movie. And I got a Venom movie that was Tom Hardy playing Venom. And it was Eddie Brock who was the Venom character. And it was based off of the late 80s and early 90s Venom comic books and even animated Spider-Man universe appearances that I loved growing up. And that's what I wanted. If you had given it to Disney, there would have been no Eddie Brock. They would have gave it to that little Flash Thompson kid, and he would have been like Agent Venom or some shit, and they would have just skipped Eddie Brock. And I don't fucking want that whatsoever. Because these people who are MCU fans or Marvel fans, they think Venom can just be anybody, and that's just not the case.
Yeah, well, because like Venom fans wanted Eddie Brock as Venom, especially since Sam Raimi fucked that up so bad with Spider-Man 3. Like, we wanted real Venom, not that 70s show Venom.
I fucking swear. And if you sit there and you fucking watch, I promise you, just go back and watch this. If you watch any of the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, there's at least one part of the story, if not two, they literally ripped from the Spider-Man animated series that came out in 94 and ran in 98. There's a dinner scene where Norman Osborn is sitting there hinting around that Spider-Man is Peter Parker to Parker in front of a bunch of people. Obviously, that's the Thanksgiving dinner for the first Spider-Man movie.
Yeah, where Aunt May slaps his hand.
The Eddie Brock. Yeah, and then the Eddie Brock, the way the symbiote comes to the fucking Earth is off of the Venom Returns episode. The way Spider-Man hangs upside down in the black suit and wakes up to it, that's literally from the black costume episode.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, all that shit. And then what really bothered me about that, and what I fucking hated it from the movie and just killed the rest of it for me. First off, Venom in Spider-Man 3 does not say we are Venom. He says I. And then when he's praying in the church,
he's like,
Eddie Brock says, "Will you please kill Peter Parker?" The actual story is Eddie is sitting there praying for forgiveness because he's about to commit suicide. And then the symbiote bonds to him because he feels the anger that Eddie Brock has towards Spider-Man. It's Eddie Brock is a tragic character. That Eddie Brock's a fucking douche in that fucking movie. So I do appreciate what Sony's done, and everybody has wanted this to fail. But let me give you some numbers real quick. The first Venom movie made around $850 million. The second Venom movie made $500 million. And you're sitting there thinking, wow, it didn't make $350 million, so it must have been a failure. Oh, nay. If you look at the domestic numbers and the numbers in the United States, it made about $2 or $3 million more than the first Venom movie did. And like we mentioned this before, the China embargo that they put up, that they were banning, they were banning all American imports at that point, especially specifically the film is what I'm talking about here. So no, Spider-Man No Way Home wasn't released over there. Nothing. It would have made a lot more money if it did.
I called President
but Venom
G.
would have made a lot more money.
I called President G. I said, look, President, you got to put Venom. Let there be carnage in theaters. It's gonna do great. It's gonna do great things. It can do a lot of things.
But
I love Venom. Yeah. He's one of the coolest characters that's ever been in
I
the
love
Spider-Man
Venom.
universe.
Look, it'll do a lot of things. People will forget that your nickname is Winnie the Pooh. Okay.
I want to get past
Falsely
the political stuff.
accused.
Dude, he's a
But no, so
felon.
Venom
I remember.
Venom would have made at least $800 million, if not $900 million, with if that was released in China, based off of it made the same amount of money worldwide that where it was released before. So somebody was like, "Oh yeah, Venom 3's not gonna make any money, all that stuff." And I made a comment. I go, "You realize that Venom made $500 million, Let There Be Carnage. So both of these movies put together for a Spider-Man villain solo movie. Both movies together have made $1.3 billion. I think that's a success. And they've already paid for and still made money off of Morbius, Madam Web, and Craven. And he's like, well, that doesn't mean they're going to make money with this movie. And then I pointed out, well, actually, if you look at the domestic numbers, Venom Let There Be Carnage made more money than Venom did. It's just weren't allowed in the China market. And he
Are
goes, he
movies
made
about,
some other comment. He's like,
has that embargo or have those restrictions been lifted as of now?
I mean,
Like,
I'm assuming they have because that was 3 years ago, and I haven't seen any articles about it. But so I think Venom 3 is going to make like a lot of money. I hope it is. I think if it does, Sony would be smart enough not to kill off the character, and when they do the Secret Wars in the Marvel MCU, they will have Eddie Brock show up from Sony because why not? They had him show up in Spider-Man No Way Home. And the other, the bonus scene for Venom Let There Be Carnage, I think I read this. The Venom Let There Be Carnage bonus scene at the end where he goes to Spider-Man's universe and Want to No Way Home was all directed by like the Marvel director, not the Sony director.
yeah, I think so.
Which was fucking Andy Samberg, or whatever his name is. Not Andy Samberg. I don't know what the fucker that guy's name is. He's Gollum. Who's that dude
Andy Samberg,
from the Lord of the Rings?
or not Andy?
What?
Not Andy Samberg. God damn it! You got me all twisted. You got my guts all. You got my guts all twisted.
Been up in my guts, twisting them.
Andy Serkis.
Andy Serkis didn't direct that though.
He directed Venom Let There Be Carnage. Yes, he did.
Oh yeah. That I'm talking about. I thought we were talking about the director for Spider-Man No Way Home, which was John Watts.
No. I said John Watts. I'm pretty sure he's the one that directed the bonus scene for Venom
Right.
and for Spider-Man No Way Home.
Right. Yeah. You're right.
So I think Venom's going. I was pretty excited just seeing it, and the more I've watched it, the more I liked it. It's like this feels like this is going to be the last one they make of this because Tom Hardy's probably not going to come back to it unless they throw a lot more money at him. And I can tell that they do care about this character. I do not think Noel is going to be the villain in this movie because they've already got Scream, they've got Lasher, and then they've got the 10-year-old Peter Parker storyline they're going to have, and then they got these other aliens. I don't think Noel's going to be part of this because I think that's too new of a
Scream. But there's like that big thing at the end of the trailer or whatever, where it's like coming down into Earth's stratosphere, and it's all like a big glob of symbiote.
Oh no, that's the War of the Symbiotes, like invading the Earth. That was another story arc that they did in the 90s.
Oh.
Where Spider-Man and Venom had to team up versus Carnage and them. And like I said, the guy who plays Mordo in the Doctor Strange movies is in it, but he's part of the Life Foundation, which is the first Venom movie. And like I said, I made the joke, and I've always made this joke like tongue-in-cheek. Like the Venom trilogy, I guess, is a lot like the Dark Knight trilogy. Because the first half of Batman Begins is boring, but then it picks up. Just like the first Venom movie. We get the Joker and the iconic thing that other than one appearance by Scarecrow, the Dark Knight doesn't even feel connected to Batman Begins, other than Batman and Alfred and the regular cast. Venom Let There Be Carnage has no but one little quick nod to the first Venom movie, and then Venom 3 is calling back to the first movie, just like the Dark Knight Rises was connected to Batman Begins, really. So I made that joke. I'm like, yeah, baby. All right, so moving on. We, today, 20 minutes into our reporting, I'm sure Cody will cut this down, are covering Friday the 13th, part motherfucking 2. And oh Jesus, I feel like our first year, Cody, we did the first Friday the 13th movie
That sounds right. I
because
think it
I
was
know.
like your third
Oh
or fourth episode that you picked.
yeah, Owen. I was at Owen's apartment when we recorded it.
Yeah.
So, and that was here
Suck,
in Clarksville.
sucking each other dry.
Uh, oh, but going into that episode, I'm pretty sure I had a probably favorable review. I haven't listened to the episode, but I also recognize the movie's kind of like skippable. Ultimately, I really don't need to rewatch it again. I know Owen didn't like it, and I don't know if Cody, if you were more neutral, leaning negative too. I think you were. So, yeah. So we're gonna pick up from there. 3 years later, I finally, and for my first impression, and to tie this in, like, if you go back, if anybody's listened to the archives, which have been put up on YouTube as we've kickstarted the YouTube channel, at some point down the road, when you listen to them, you'll come across an episode where me and Cody acknowledged that actually both our grandmothers had passed away within like a day or two of each other. And then that was our, like, I can't remember what episode it was, but it was the episode like right after that we talked about it. And I mentioned that because it was because of my grandmother that I actually got a chance to watch these movies. My mom was not a fan. My dad like hit or miss, didn't really care. Wasn't really something that he watched in his wheelhouse. But my grandmother loved the Friday the 13th movies and the Halloween movies. And when I say grandmother, my grandmother was younger. Like when she passed away, she was, I want to say, 72. No, she was either 72 or 71. When I was born, my grandma was 39 years old. So
Damn.
she was young. So when I was 10 years old, she was 49 going on 50. When someone talks about grandmother, you think about a feeble old woman. My feeble old woman in my life was my great grandmother who passed away at 88 years old, 20 years ago. So my grandmother was younger. So I'm 10 years old and I'm able to watch these movies. She's 49 years old. And a lot of people, some people's parents are like 49 years old. So I'm, pretty lucky to have like younger grandparents at the time. And my grandmother had told me like I couldn't watch the movies. My mom wouldn't allow it, and I had a beginning image for some reason. What turns out to be Friday the 13th Part 7, where I see this dude in a hockey mask walk up to the outside of a window of a house. These people are dancing inside, and what I thought, of course, is always in pop culture. You see some maniac in a hockey mask with a chainsaw.
He's a
So I thought at some
maniac.
point Jason used the chainsaw as well. Do what?
When you said that, I was just, he's a maniac, maniac, go, no, no.
Real funny, Cody. Real funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Real
Um,
funny, dude. Come on.
um,
This is
but
serious, goddammit.
my well, this first part was, and Cody ruined it. Anywho, so 10 years old, the first Friday the 13th movie I watched was Part 6, and then I saw Halloween 2. Because at this point, like I said, I'm 10 years old, maybe a little bit younger, so 97, 98. VHS tapes weren't something you could necessarily buy in the community where I lived out in. You had to go into the town of Clarksville, which I lived about 2 miles away from the Cheatham County line, 2 miles away from my grandmother's house. And I was really like 5 miles away from Madison Street of Clarksville, which is exit 11. The mall's at exit 4, so that's another like 8 miles away. So you're thinking like at least 10 to 12 miles away from where I lived, and I didn't have a car. But my grandma said they started carrying the Friday the 13th movies on VHS, so she ended up buying them. And then she ended up getting them all. We watched them. And then for Christmas one year, she got me Friday the 13th Part 2, Part 4, and Part 6 because those were my favorites. Um, yeah, so that's my first impression of this movie was at some point probably 10 years old. and I got a chance to like watch all these movies with my grandmother first, which was pretty fucking awesome. And then my uncle, she always told me the story that her and my uncle is a younger guy. He's only 13 years older than me. So let's see here. If I'm 10, he's maybe 23. Of course, he seemed older at the time to me because obviously I'm a fucking kid. But he was telling me, he watched those, and I remember asking him, like, "Who do you think would win between Jason and Michael?"
Hey guys,
Because I'm a little retard.
real quick, sorry.
Yeah.
I have to take a massive shit, so I'm about to shit my pants. So I'll be back in a sec. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but it's important.
Oh, he ain't coming back.
You're
Jason,
good.
Jason's
going
gonna
to
get him.
too. So
Jason's gonna
I'm
get
sure
him.
Cody might cut this out. He might, especially when you watch part 3.
Gonna go take a shit in that toilet shed, or that shed toilet, or whatever that Jason's got.
It's an outhouse, Cody, is what they call it.
It's
Now I gotta talk about that when we get to that point. I don't want to talk about it right now, though.
I gotta talk about it too. Let's talk about it.
I'm confused by it because I don't know if those are old cabins that have been like over the years repurposed by a homeless person, and Jason eventually killed that person. Because I don't think Jason put that shit together.
I don't know. To me,
But,
it looks
we'll
like
get
it's
to
just
that at that
random. Yeah. We'll talk about it. His little shed or whatever that he lives in.
Yeah. So I asked my uncle. I remember this, man. I was outside. He had this black like GMC, the version of Silverado. They didn't have a name for it. It was just a GMC 1500.
Yeah, it was.
And he said, I asked him, who do you think would win between Jason and Michael? He's like, well, look, Michael was some pussy that was taking care of him in some crazy house, and Jason was a retard that grew up in the woods. Jason would kick his ass. I go, oh, okay. So I was like, all right. So, I mean, again, at this point, I hadn't seen these movies yet. So I was really like, oh, how does Jason get the hockey mask? I'm just over here, like, intrigued by, like, the stories I would be told by my grandmother. And I watched them out of order because, again, it was hit or miss what the mall video store, my grandma said, was carrying. It wasn't like you had a whole display that had all 9 movies at the time.
Right.
She would she would see one, she'd pick it up, Like, now we can just go to Amazon, one click, one button, and buy and have the movie in 2 days if you've got Amazon Prime. So, but yeah, this was that was my first impression of Friday the 13th Part 2. I've seen it multiple times. It is it's in my top 3 of Friday the 13th movies. Sometimes it's in my top 4. Like I said, I've got 4 movies I really go back to that I really love. And all that. And my favorite one, it fluctuates between Friday the 13th Part 6 and Friday the 13th Part 4, the final chapter, which we'll be recording an episode on in about 2 months, and we should have a guest host, Alex from I'll Take 3. Go ahead and ask Owen's question, Cody.
No, Owen was saying he accidentally left the call.
Oh, nice. No. But what does Owen say whenever I mention the podcast? I'll take 3.
Oh, 3 what?
He goes 3 what?
And then I say 3. And then I say 3 dicks.
He can. Yeah, he should be able to just rejoin because he's a dumbass. Anyway, but yeah. So that was my whole first thing. And like I said, I've watched this movie so many fucking times. I love this movie, and I've talked about it with you quite a few times because I remember I let you borrow my collection, but you never got a chance to watch them all. And now they're on HBO Max for now until Warner Brothers makes it a good decision to take everything off again because they're fucking stupid.
Yeah, the only ones they don't have on there are Jason Goes to Hell and Jason X, which I guess that just means that the other guy owns those or whatever.
Yeah, well, it doesn't make any sense because New Line Home Cinema, which is owned by Warner Brothers, is the one that made Jason Goes to Hell and Jason X.
I don't understand it because they also started that Jason Universe thing, right? Where they're gonna introduce more things that contain Jason, whether it's video games, TV shows, comics, whatever. But instead of calling it Friday the 13th, it's called Jason Universe. But my understanding is that Warner Brothers owns that. So
I think, if I'm not mistaken now, Warner Brothers probably owns everything Jason now. Paramount owns nothing.
Yeah.
I think they traded some kind of asset, and Warner Brothers owns everything Friday the 13th related.
Gotcha.
So, and that's what I think. I could be wrong. Like I said, this thing is so fucking messy the way the judge ruled this,
It is.
and the reason why they're not going to put a movie out is because Steve Miner, Victor Miller, the first writer of the first movie, owns those characters and Mrs. Voorhees. I think he owns Jason as a name, but not Jason as a character, which I don't know how all this
I
works.
don't. But see, I
And
don't.
someone,
That doesn't make sense to me either because they just put Jason. They just put Jason Voorhees in the Multiverses game, and that's owned by Warner Brothers. Like that is a Warner Brothers owned property.
yeah. See, I think that was from Horror Inc. is the company, quote unquote, that owns Jason. I don't know if Sean Cunningham is still involved or in charge of them, or if it's just a Warner Brothers thing.
Yeah.
They own, if I'm not mistaken, I think they own the domestic rights. Where Victor Miller, excuse me, Steve Miner's the director of this Friday the 13th Part Two. Victor Miller is the owner of the foreign market, I believe. I think that's how it was, but it's a lot of fucking shit. And this Twitter account that it's called Womp Stomp Films. They're the ones that have been putting out the Jason fan films, Never Hike Alone, and they're really, really good quality. And they responded to somebody in the Jason Universe Twitter account, not to them, but somebody responding to that tweet. And they're like, look, a Friday the 13th movie could make $300 million easy. It's probably Warner Brothers not wanting to pay all the parties to make sure they have the rights to everything.
Yeah.
They don't want to split the profit. So again, we got to sit there and squat over an empty toilet because nobody wants to fucking pay Victor Miller any of his like the right. It's just fucking. It's so
Warner
fucking
Brothers
shit,
may
man.
also just be like, well, we'll just sit here and wait for you to go and die because I mean, surely he doesn't have that much time left in life, right? So
Yeah, and my fear is that you lose momentum, and I feel like the momentum we had in 2018 with Halloween has already died off because of Halloween Ends. Like you could already tell, like it was kind of losing steam. And like I said, Halloween Kills and Ends were like the top streaming thing on Peacock, but they didn't make they made about the same amount of money, but people weren't happy with it.
yeah,
Obviously, we've voiced our displeasure, and I've softened on Halloween Kills because ultimately it's a Michael Myers movie and a Friday the 13th movie. The way he kills everybody.
well, I think
So
the going back, I haven't seen Halloween Kills since we watched it for this, but I think at least in hindsight, the biggest issue was the whole like mob and just the constant, evil dies tonight shit. It's like
it will die. That shit was fucking stupid.
it's so
Like,
overdone.
oh.
And then I still think the way that they surrounded the guy in the hospital, and I can't remember if he jumped
Yeah,
out the window or what, but it's like,
he did. He jumped out the window. And to be honest with you, and we talked about it on the episode and since then too. That scene made me feel something. Like I felt a sadness.
and
Like I didn't think a Halloween movie could like emote for me. And then they just show his body comically in pieces. It's like, okay,
yeah,
you just ruined that moment you created.
yeah.
Like you guys have no idea what the fuck
Well,
you're doing, and it's pretty
at least
obvious.
at least it seems like Universal's done with David Gordon Green. So, because they booted him off of the Exorcist trilogy that he was supposed to be making, since this first one in
Mm.
that trilogy flopped really bad, and they are giving it Mike Flanagan is. Thank God, Mike Flanagan is directing the next one, and Mike Flanagan is very much the type of person who's like, I don't want to continue someone else's bullshit. Like if I want to do this, I'm going to do it my way, and
Hey,
yeah.
look at Owen's text message real quick. You may have to add him in the call
All right.
again.
But thankfully Universal's like, yeah, sure, come in, make your own film for this, do what you want to do with it. I'm sure there are certain guidelines, but it's not a continuation of David Gordon Green's project that he was doing. So, and Mike Flanagan, I think, is one of the best horror filmmakers in the last like 10 to 15 years.
Well, I totally agree. Like I do just think it's fine. But I went over my the first time I ever seen this movie, and then I'm gonna go now to Cody. Because I know Cody has at least seen this movie once, maybe not, and I know Owen's never seen it before, so I was gonna go in that order.
So
Cody, sir, what was your first impressions of the
yeah,
movie?
so I'm gonna give a blanket statement here for and I'll probably have to repeat this for the next several movies that we do. So with parts 2 through 7, I want to say I don't know
Hmm.
that I've ever seen any of them from start to finish. When I was growing up,
Okay,
a lot of times with Friday the 13th, they would come on AMC a lot, and
Fear Fest.
yeah, Fear Fest. And so it was just pretty much like if I was in my room and I turned the TV on and it was on, I'd watch it at least for a little bit. Um, I don't think that there's another one that I'd seen from start to finish until part 8. Um, I know I've definitely seen like Jason Goes to Hell and Jason X and the reboot from start to finish before. I've seen Jason X probably more than any of these other movies because I fucking love that movie. Uh, but yeah, with this one, like I have vague memories as a kid seeing like the couple that are in the beginning, you know, the ones in the pickup truck or whatever. I have vague
Hmm.
memories of them, and some vague memories of Jason with the sack head mask or whatever. But at the same time, I don't know. I can't remember if he has it at the start of part 3 either. So it's like a lot of it's jumbled up again because I just saw bits and pieces of that stretch of film. So this is definitely my first time watching it start to finish.
Okay, well, I like that. I got well, since you mentioned Fear Fest, and we'll talk about this here in a minute. Owen, sir, was this your first time ever watching this movie?
Yeah, I had never watched this before.
Okay, cool, cool. I'm excited to get into this. I know it's gonna probably be like mixed and negative opinions from you guys, but I'm okay with that. Talking about Fear Fest. Fear Fest was started in 1997 on the AMC network, launched as Monster Fest. It was a popular week-long marathon of horror movies and thrillers that aired in late October. Um, well, Fear Fest replaced Monster Fest in 2008, so it ran for about 10 years. Now, what was exciting about that, because I'd heard, like, seen some of the movies, I was excited to watch them. Um, the original Universal monster movies they showed Dracula, Wolfman, Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, that kind of thing. I was real excited to watch these movies, and they had a lot of the off the wall sequels that followed, like Frankenstein meets Dracula, Frankenstein meets Wolfman, Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein, which is a fantastic movie we're going to have to watch one day. Um, all of this was like I would watch it all the time. And I remember telling my grandma because she would watch them too. And that back then, DirecTV, you could get a magazine that had the whole entire month's programming for DirecTV. It was like a super like version of TV Guide. And I remember getting in and looking up to see if the movie's gonna pop up. It was pretty good publication for like to think about how much hours of programming they had put in there to let you know what was coming on that month. But um I remember telling my grandma, I was like, "Man, this thing's gonna be really weird when they finally play Friday the 13th and Halloween movies and stuff like that." And then that happened in 2008. Like they got the rights and they started showing Halloween with the classic monster movies. They eventually started like filtering out those old classic movies. But I always thought that was cool, and that was something I always used to share with my grandmother, like Fear Fest. Like, I knew it used to be called Monster Fest. I couldn't remember the timeline, so I had to look that up real quick. But yeah, so this movie. And the reason why I wanted to talk about the Venom trailer before this movie, obviously it came out this week, but I was talking to Alex about this, and I wrote this to Alex. Let me write this out real quick. I said Venom is the Friday the 13th of comic book movies. All the snobs hate him, and the genre fans think it's a cheap imitation, but the crowd likes slash loves them because they make all the movie. This movie is this first movie was a blatant ripoff of Halloween mixed with an inverse of Psycho. Psycho, you have the son who is killing as his mother. In the first movie, you have a mother that's killing for her son,
Yes, mother.
but it's obviously a ramped up Halloween ripoff. They want to make things more gorier and shit like that. It's not really based on suspense, and the creators will tell you it was a cheap money grab. but it made $39 million for a cheap money grab. So they wanted to make more money. Um, I watched the part two chapter in the Crystal Lake Memories Blu-ray documentary they put out. There's also a book. I don't have the book. It's at my dad's house, but it's a huge fucking book that just has more and more like pictures. It's really fucking cool. Like the guy who put all the love and effort into making it. His name was like Daniel Farrens, I believe, and he was the writer of Halloween 6: The Curse of Michael Myers, and he wrote like the Halloween retrospective that they had for like they filmed for the Blu-ray releases for Scream Factory. Um, but he did this Crystal Lake. This thing is 7 hours long. So you have like all this in depth. He talks to everybody. He even talks to like fucking associate producer who was the son of Paramount Pictures VP at the time, Frank Mancuso Jr. Um, but they had talked to Victor Miller and Sean Cunningham about coming back for Friday the 13th Part 2. And in no uncertain terms in this documentary, Victor Miller said, Jason's dead. The Jason in my story is dead at the beginning. He's not coming back. And Sean Cunningham, in his infinite wisdom and his buck teeth, said that, Jason was dead, so he wasn't. Like, I mean, where can you go with the story? I've already made a Friday the 13th. And what's his name? Tom Savini, the makeup artist who's done like Dawn of the Dead and all that, done plenty of things. He's fucking great as special effects artist. He did the first movie. He said he wasn't receptive of the idea, so wasn't involved. Well, they all went on to make another couple Friday the 13th knockoffs. Associate director and Sean Cunningham's assistant, Steve Miner, was brought in to do the directing of this movie. And they had somebody else come in and write it. Frank Mancuso Jr., who's, like I said, was the son of Paramount Pictures VP, Frank Mancuso Sr. He was a 22-year-old fresh out of college student, and he joined. He wanted to see how the movie industry worked because he was trying to further his career at this point. But he worked his way up the ladder in the production of this movie. Like, they were firing people because I guess they weren't doing their jobs. And so he ended up becoming associate producer, and then his first producing project is Friday the 13th Part 3. So this whole thing, and then he's involved with the franchise all the way up until Friday the 13th Part 8. And then after that movie, Paramount sells it to New Line Home Cinema, and the rest is in the toilet. Um, so yeah, there's a little big backstory on that. This movie, the first movie, had a $550,000 budget, and this movie had, let me make sure I get this right. This movie had a budget of 1.25 million, and the box office was 21.7 million. It still made a bunch of money. Versus like that, everybody's like, "Well, it's a failure." Again, these movies were hated by everyone. The only Friday the 13th movie that ever got a positive review was Part 6, because people just hate this kind of shit. They just wish these movies would go away. Um, yeah. So, like, quick first impressions before we go over the plot. Were you guys Was this better because it was actually like Jason as a killer, or was it still kind of boring to you? I'll go with Cody
Okay.
first. Sorry,
So
I did that because I didn't know who was yelling at me. I'm like,
yes.
Go ahead, Cody.
So to me, it's too similar to the first one. It feels like they kind of just rehash the same kind of idea. Obviously, it's revealed to you a lot sooner that it's Jason as a killer, so it's not like a mystery as to who's doing it. But like the same sort of, it's a lot of times it's from the perspective of the killer. It's picking off the campers at one by one, and without really anyone being aware of what's happening at the time. It seems like they just took the first one, redid it, but here's Jason instead of Pamela.
Yeah, Pamela Voorhees.
There's just a couple of things that kind of like stick out as being different. Obviously, he has like his whole like house in the woods, and his like shrine to his mom and things like that. But yeah, for the most part, it feels like the same movie. Oh, and I will say the pacing is a lot better. You don't have any of those.
I would also say the cinematography is a lot better
Yeah, I
too.
mean, you don't have a lot of those like really long, drawn out shots that are just completely unnecessary. Like we they
I have a very funny story here in a minute about something in this movie
they
that harkens back to the first movie.
they they had to show Ralph on his bicycle again, and when I saw that, I was like, please don't show this for 5.5 minutes. I don't need to see him ride into the local grocery store to pick up a carton of eggs. Just let it be. And thankfully, they killed him off pretty quick because it's like, all right, you don't have to worry about Crazy Ralph ever again. But
Yeah, it was funny. They just fucking killed his ass. They were like, "We're done with this motherfucker."
yeah, so
He jacks off a little bit watching them kiss, and fucking immediately dies.
yeah, so I mean, I think they kill off like the both original characters from the first movie in this. So,
Yeah.
but yeah,
All
overall
right,
it is
so
it is a little bit better than the first one for sure. But it's not like a huge
okay,
jump or
good deal.
anything.
Okay. Owen, sir.
So it's kind of the same as Cody. I feel like a lot of this is a retread, and but I do think with that question that you were asking, kind of as the opener here, I do think it is more interesting having, I guess, Jason be the killer, because I think that the last, despite the fact that I thought this was like kind of like a boring retread, and that I don't know. It was just more interesting at the end, kind of with what they were playing around with, than just having it be, I don't know, the mom, I guess.
No, I got you. Yeah.
Other than that, another issue I had, and it it didn't surprise me when you had sent that clip in our group chat about the uncut death scenes.
Kills.
Yeah, the kills. Is that the kills were really tame in this movie? Uh, I don't know.
Well, they're tame because of the MPAA was really harsh on this movie because they let the first movie. There was only like 8 or 9 seconds cut out of the first
Yeah.
movie, and then the critics hammered them for letting that movie go through. So this movie, they cut at least a minute or two of footage out of like a lot of these special effects in this movie that were going to be really good, like that spear through between the two people, the couple, and then the dude. Like they cut away from a lot of that stuff. Of course, I will say like the one kill that I felt was better, like edited than the unedited was Alice's kill at the beginning. When they stick that like ice pick through her head, I thought it was going to go straight through her brain, but this looks like it goes into her brain, out her nose, and she just sticks her tongue out a couple times like she's
She
licking
said,
some pussy. And then
"I'm dying."
that was it. I'm like, well, that wasn't a good death scene. I'm glad they edited that part.
Yeah, there's
That reminds me the death scene where he kills the where he kills the sheriff or whatever. He like puts the hammer in his head. He's like ah ah. Just like,
yeah. He's like, "Ow, fuck, ow, goddamn." The acting in this fucking movie is I mean, it's something, dude.
it was like the kind of reaction like. My thought was that's not like how someone would react with a hammer inside their brain. That's more like a reaction like you drop the hammer on your foot or something like God, son
like,
of a bitch.
Yeah, you're like fucking. I
Um,
don't know. It's so tame.
well, this is a good transition to this quick story. You guys want to hear a story about the actor who plays the sheriff?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. As per him saying this on Crystal Lake Memories, the actor, and we're gonna make sure I get his name right. Let's see here, Deputy Winslow. The actor's name was Jack Marks. Neither before or after this movie had he ever driven a car. Him driving down the street was the first time he ever drove. He had to have some lessons. So not only in the first movie did they set up that cop for failure because the actor never rode a motorcycle before and they wanted him to ride a motorcycle. This movie, this guy never drove a car and they still had him drive a car and he said, almost killed a few people, just joking around. But I thought, like, man, this is fucking great. You just find something that an actor's never done before and have them do it on camera
So when he
for this fucking movie. Like, this is what tested
so
it.
when he jumps out of the car to run after Jason, he's not really running after Jason. He's just so terrified of driving that he's like, I'm out of here, and just runs off into the
No,
woods.
he thought he hit something. He heard a bump. He goes, I gotta get the fuck out of
Yeah.
here. Hey, that's why Jason was running away. He didn't want to get hit. He's like, no, that guy doesn't know how to drive. And I watched that scene. I ain't gonna lie to you. I watched it. I knew that story, so I watched it last week. And I watched that scene like twice. And I watched it today and watched that scene twice. And that car is fucking swaying. It's not a lot. And you got to remember this. I don't know if that car had it, but in the 80s, power steering was a luxury you had to pay for. Not every vehicle had power steering. So that car was just like freewheeling on the top when he's steering and shit.
That's
That's just, it's
so.
fucking
I guess
funny
that's
to
why
me.
in like old TV shows and stuff, like you see how like when they're holding the steering wheel and they're like driving down the road or whatever, it's so like as a kid I'm just thinking, oh, it's so over exaggerated how they're like turning the wheel so much. But I guess if you don't have power steering, it's like
Yeah.
you gotta like constantly be
Yeah,
managing
yeah,
it.
yeah, you have no, there, you are power steering in the car. You're having to steer it. Like, especially if you take sharp curves and stuff, you're spinning that wheel around. Yeah, that power steering wasn't like a permanent thing until like the late 80s in the vehicles and shit. Um, well, like I said, I kind of knew this movie would be kind of like mixed to negative with you guys. I fucking love it. I don't care about the acting. I think the main actress, Amy Steele, who's the surviving girl, is hot and she's a great actress and she's in a lot of other things in the 80s. I'm not gonna go through everything.
Dude,
Don't feel like
as
it.
soon as she showed up on screen, I was like, "That's the final girl." Like,
Yeah,
I just
you
knew
can tell.
immediately.
Yeah. I like Crazy Ralph, played by Walt Gorney. Gorney, excuse me. I thought it was an M. I don't have my glasses on. Excuse me. Um, I think he's like the Dr. Loomis almost of these first two movies. He's just warning everybody and shit, and everybody just thinks he's
You're
nuts.
doomed.
Um, oh, doom. Well, it's so funny. Like, fans love that character. Like, period. Like, fans of the franchise. He has an uncredited speaking role for the Friday the 13th Part 7, the intro of that movie. I don't want you guys to go and watch it. Like, somewhere down the, like, this year we'll be watching that movie. I want it to be fresh for then. But there's an intro, and someone goes over the saying, there's a death curse. And it's him, but he's uncredited in the movie. But it's the guy who played Crazy Ralph that did the spoken intro for that movie. It was fucking awesome. Um, well, this movie starts off with Jason's first foray into the city, I guess, because he'll go to another city in about 6 movies.
That's the
Um,
best one.
and interestingly enough, the one there's the woman who's I don't know if she was a special effects artist for this movie or somebody helped out. The scene where Jason's walking to the house through the rain puddle. That's actually a woman wearing men's jeans and that. So the first time you ever see adult Jason on screen, he's played by a woman.
Oh, that's okay
Um,
because there was a scene in the original one where when Pamela kills somebody, it's actually a dude. It's like the stunt guy's arm or whatever. It's because you can see
Yeah.
like his hair.
And
And
that's
his
just how
hand.
yeah, well, that's the scene you're talking about is when they cut off her head at the end. You see the hairy knuckles and shit.
Oh,
Like, that's the thing
yeah.
that's everybody can spotlight. Everything else is just kind of quick. You have to like pause the movie to see.
Mm.
But it's like a slow motion shot with it's like going to grab for its head, and you see like hairy
Oh.
knuckles and like man hammock hands.
Dude, I wanted to bring up that shot because the first like few minutes of this film is like a recap as to what happened at the end of the first one.
Yeah, every one of these movies has that, except for Part 8.
Putting that in slow motion was a mistake because you can clearly see like when the machete hits the neck, like the neck is splitting from the opposite side that the machete is hitting.
Yeah.
So
You can
so-
tell it's like a little fucking dummy head.
Yeah. Well, like
Yeah.
it's
Well-
not even the dummy head that gets me. It's just the fact of like she's being hit like from her left side, but the right side of the neck opens up first because literally, I mean, all it is them knocking the head off with the machete, but it doesn't like have like a cut through effect to it. So like putting it in slow motion is just like painfully obvious that it's like just being knocked off or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I mean, I get it, but you gotta also remember too, like this movie was on VHS when it was a home release. It didn't get a DVD release till like 04, 05. And then it didn't get this HD release until like 2012 for Blu-rays and shit. So it wasn't something. Again, some of this stuff looks better on VHS tape versus it being enhanced. We've talked about that in past movies we've covered.
Well, what they really needed
like
was
some of the shit
George
just
Lucas
does not
to
age
come
well.
in and
Yeah,
make some
CGI
changes.
some shit in here.
We need George Lucas come in and fix it afterwards.
They should have.
Like, oh,
They
well,
should have had like
actually,
a blue
I don't want it to.
singing elephant show up on screen. Right before, right after Jason kills somebody, he goes, "Oh,
What if it turned out that Pamela was actually an alien from outer space?
I think the kids will love it. Watch this. But anyway, so yeah, the first they do it, and I always find this so funny in movies. Like every fucking movie does this. You never have like what it would really look like. I would be interested to see if somebody was to do a dream sequence, like in the next movie. Like so, the sequel picks up, and they're having dreams about the first movie. Instead of showing us flashes of scenes from the first movie in their dreams, show me flashes of their first-person perspective in this dream.
Yeah.
Instead of just don't show me movie scenes, and they're not going to do that for this movie, but every other movie does this too. So I'm not like criticizing
I mean,
this
it's just
movie.
easier.
I just find it funny.
It's just easier to show scenes.
And Adrienne King, who is the lady who plays Alice, she they wanted her to come. They wanted her to come back for this movie, but her agent wanted too much money, so they brought her in just to kill her off at the beginning of this movie.
Fine, bitch,
She
you're
said
dead.
this whole part.
Fine, bitch, you're dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. But she said in Crystal Lake Memories, like this whole thing that she was filming was improv. She didn't have a script. They told her, yeah, just act like you're having a nightmare, and then the phone call, that was her improvising, talking to her mother and all that stuff. I do think it's funny. It doesn't make a lot of logical sense, but then again, it's a slasher movie, so don't think too much about it. That
Jason tracked her down.
Jason calls her.
Uh-huh.
Jason tracked her down, yeah. But then Jason calls her and then hangs up to make sure she's home. Like, how in the fuck would he know how to do
Yeah,
that?
well, he's like,
that's
this is a
thing,
collect call. He tells the operator.
You got this mongoloid that's raised himself in the fucking woods for the last like however many years, and he somehow knows how to use a phone, figure out what Alice's name is, and also figure out like how to like look her up in a phone book. This motherfucker probably can't even read. It's like, how is this? Yeah, the whole setup in the beginning's dumb. It's just doesn't make any sense. And somehow he also found directions to get to wherever it was that she lived, and then make his way back into the fucking woods, probably 100 miles away. So it's silly.
Yeah, but it's a slasher movie, baby. So if we're looking
I'm
at
the Joker, baby.
I'm the Joker, baby. If we're looking at like timeline, which good luck with that. I will suggest anybody that's listening to this, if you're a Friday the 13th fan, Matt Gorley and Paul Rust, two comedians who did podcasts, who've been doing a podcast for years now. Their first series of movies they did was all the Friday the 13th movies, and they covered them perfectly. I'm going to have Cody pop in a sound clip of Matt Gorley doing a Southern lawyer who's defending Jason.
I don't know.
And it's pretty fucking funny. Like, the whole bit's just fucking great. Because they're like, what if, like... It's like, what do you think she meant when she says, I'm going to kill you? And he goes, look at my poor baby Jason. It's really fucking good. I'll send it to Owen, and you guys just listen to the first minute. It's like 6 minutes because they do it throughout. They bring the Southern lawyer back to defend Jason. Like, he actually didn't kill anybody. Someone else did.
For the defense of Jason when he inevitably goes to court, both in the criminal and the civil trial, I could see his defense team trying to pin it on Terry going.
His slick lawyer will be like, now, you tell me why on earth she would say, I'll kill you for that.
The only reason I could think is to, let's see, I don't know, allow us to tell you that perhaps you should have a shadow of a doubt. that my client, look at my sweet client over here. The poor thing looks like the back end of a malformed hen's egg. Could this little sweet puppy boy do the things that are being alleged here in this courtroom today?
The jury stands up unanimously and says, "We exonerate him."
Thank you. Shortest trial of my life. Jason, you are free to...
But it's just funny. So they kill off Alice. And what's pretty impressive is Jason has brought his mom's head to Alice's apartment, and he has to drag Alice's body and his mom's head back to his little hut in the woods. So it's pretty impressive. All the while he's wearing a potato sack over his head.
I didn't realize for some
For
some reason I didn't realize that was his mom's head in the fucking thing. Why would he do that? He's like, I gotta put this bitch in the fridge real quick.
Yeah, just a reminder. Just a reminder that she killed her. I guess. I mean, again, this whole intro scene is just, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
It doesn't even really need to be there outside of like fucking them.
Yeah,
just
why
being like,
do they have?
Fuck
why
Alice.
do they feel like they had to kill Alice off? Like, why could they just not like, yeah, Alice fucking, she survived. She's off on her own somewhere. She's gone. You know, like. It's all
They're
unnecessary.
just like, fuck that bitch, kill her.
Oh, you don't want to come back and do our movie?
Well, you gotta remember. Well, this is, you gotta think about this. I will defend this. You have to think about it like this. They want to tie up any loose ends from the first movie. Halloween 2 hadn't come out yet. Halloween 2 comes out after this movie came out. So you had Jamie Lee Curtis come back for that movie. So they're like, let's just go ahead and start off with new fresh faces and just wrap up the loose ends. That's why they kill off Crazy Ralph, and they kill off the sheriff in this movie, because they established that there's a cop on premise. You kill him off, there's nobody here to help protect these kids.
Well, I mean, the
So that was
sheriff
the whole point of the movie,
makes
like-
sense. Like, but, and even like Ralph, it's like, okay, Ralph he showed up one too many times, and you know, today's his unlucky day. But like Alice, who lives however far away from this place, you know, and has been gone for 5 years, somehow Jason tracks her down.
No. She dies 2 months after the first event. Movie.
Okay. Even then, it's 2 months later. She's gone. She's far away, and somehow Jason tracks her down. And again, he probably doesn't know how to read. He's just some hulking mongoloid who lives in the middle of the woods. Like it just doesn't make sense.
Very good archery skills later on.
Yeah.
Well, he has very good archery skills later on.
And good carpentry.
As Cody will tell you, we
carpentry
played
skills too.
Evidently. Well, Cody and I have played the Friday the 13th game a couple times together, and both of us have gotten legitimately creeped out. Like, you got creeped out in the virtual cabin part, like I did.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you have some dude chasing you, I know it doesn't seem scary watching this movie like that, but if this was real life, you'd be shitting your fucking pants. I'm gonna go ahead and be completely honest.
Yeah.
Um,
If
And then I'll be throwing at him.
but yeah,
like
so
a chimp.
if you were in what?
If
you were in this situation in real life and having some dude chase you around trying to kill you, you'd be shitting your fucking pants.
what about the dog?
Yeah, I thought it died. What the fuck was that died?
Yeah, like, so are there two dogs out there that look exactly the same?
Clone. Jason had a clone dog.
Oh, when you see part 3, you realize this whole last part of the movie was a dream, just like the first movie.
Lord.
Jason's not a kid that drug Alice into the bottom of the lake. Even the director, Sean Cunningham, and the writer said that was just a little wink and nod dream at the camera.
Yeah.
In this movie, you see Jason pops through at the end with the machete in his shoulder
Yeah.
to grab her, and then she wakes up and Paul's gone. Well, in the next movie, you see Jason pulls the machete out of his shoulder and drags his body across the floor. So that whole thing where Jason grabs her and shit is just like a dream sequence. Paul's probably dead. He just dies off screen.
Okay.
They just find her outside.
Oh.
That makes sense.
Or maybe it's not a dream. Maybe that wasn't the dog Muffin who got killed, and it was some other animal.
Muffin?
I like
but-
how they hype up that one lady whose dog that is, the lady with her tits out, like in that thing. Like they're like, this bitch is gonna be hot. She's got the ass, and then she gets naked. You're just like, oh, okay. Like, she's
God,
not
look,
really
you can play
that
the
hot.
fucking you can play the xylophone on that bitch. Like,
Yeah, I was like,
that's
I was
all
disappointed.
That's all I noticed the entire time. Like, it's like, god damn, you can see every single one of her ribs from front to back. Like, it's just like, holy shit.
I was like, okay.
Oh, I will say
This lady's gonna have some like nice titties or something, and she gets naked. And you're like, well, that's what. Okay, never mind.
You know, a lot of guys like women with petite titties. I prefer extremely heavy chested, or at least big.
Extremely.
There's a sex
Extremely
scene
cow
in part
Fucking
5.
titties.
there's a sex scene in part 5 where the chick's got big titties, but no other sex scenes in any of these movies. I don't think they have chicks who have like C cups or D cups. They're all like B's right.
This is
Can we talk about how Jason's a pervert?
This
And,
is
like,
this is the highbrow movie commentary you come here for.
Yeah.
Like, literally every time like a woman's getting undressed or changed or whatever in this movie, like Jason is off in the bushes like watching and just probably I like at one point I thought, man, Jason's probably running around this campground with just a fucking raging boner the entire time. Like,
He's like, man.
he's just like, it's like, oh man, she's out there skinny dipping, I'm gonna watch her for a while. Oh, this one girl who's into the handicap guy is gonna go into the cabin and change, I'm gonna watch her for a little bit. Oh, these two are in here fucking, I'm gonna go in here and watch them. It's like, what the fuck, Jason?
Yeah,
Like, chill
like,
out.
Well, he's just like,
Hey,
I don't get how he finds himself. Like, he must just be like the luckiest guy ever, because like, just everybody's just always getting naked and fucking around him like constantly.
In reality, I think you're made to think every movie, every scene that is being filmed is from Jason's point of view, but I think in reality it's just a hard camera, and they just don't distinguish it. If you ever watch a Halloween fucking movie, it's the same fucking thing.
Yeah, I mean,
so this isn't
yeah,
just a Jason thing.
So yeah, if you look at it like from an actual viewpoint of what if it's him or not, when the girl goes skinny dipping, it's not Jason. Jason's not watching. It's actually the other guy that's like into her that's watching her.
Yeah, and they do that. They pull that switcheroo because obviously you hadn't seen Jason, but they show his hands a couple.
You know,
of times.
it really
hands.
fooled me when I seen that cleanly pressed sleeve reach out and take her clothes. I really thought that was Jason for a minute.
Yeah.
You know,
He takes her just to jerk off into him or something.
Well, like when you see the hand reach out and like it's obviously like a clean shirt the guy's wearing because he's wearing like a long sleeve shirt with like, you know, buttoned up cuffs and all that. It's like, so it's like it's very clean. It's like, oh yeah, like you're not fooling anybody. You know, we know it's not Jason. But when the girl's changing in the cabin, it's not him because obviously he's up at the house because he's going to kill the. Or I guess he could have been watching her and then walked off toward the main house.
Yeah.
It would be funny if like there was like a sex scene and then it's just like the guy's like, oh, gee, he's like, yeah, keep putting your finger in my ass. She's like, I'm not doing that. Turns around, it's Jason like fucking fingering this guy's ass.
Well, they make that joke in Scary Movie too. I'm pretty sure.
Oh really? Okay.
Yeah, because the Sean Wayans character is like
yeah,
they like
the little clown or whatever the fuck.
Yeah, like they keep implying that like he's gay or whatever in the movie, and he's having sex with Brenda, I think, and I think there's a joke exactly like that where he's like, yeah, keep putting your finger in my ass, and she's like, I'm not doing that.
God damn it, Scary Movie 2. Damn you, Wayans brothers. Dude, I watched, so just a quick aside, I watched Scary Movie 3 again a little while ago, and I made Lauren watch it too.
Oh my god.
So we got to the science parody part, and you know where there's the car crash? The person the person who is supposed to be M. Night Shyamalan's character in that movie, like it does that scene where he's walking to the car crash and it pans over to him like on the side of the road like looking sad, and he looks up and he's like, hey, I'm gonna need a ride home. I fucking lost it, dude. I started crying. I did not expect it, dude. It was so fucking funny.
Hey, when we talk about signs in our episode, you go back, I mentioned that scene because it always cracks me the fuck up. It goes, hey, Tom, I'm going to need a ride home.
Dude, I was fucking crying. Like, it was so fucking funny.
Hey, after that whole part, it goes back to him, and he's sitting outside the car, and he goes, "I'm sorry, dude." He goes, "Don't call me dude. I haven't been a dude since." And it plays that same music he was playing in the car, like he got high. He's like, "No, no, 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 no." And then when he drives off in reverse by accident. It's fucking hilarious.
He crashes
But
through
no,
their
hey,
house.
He's putting the jacket on. He goes, "Hey Tom, I'm gonna need a ride with you. I'm gonna need a ride."
Yeah, it's so fucking funny, dude. But anyways, that's that. Sorry.
No, I was hoping you were going to that part. I'm like, please talk about this. Please talk about this. Please talk
I
about
can't
this.
remember the other thing that fucking made
Hey.
me. Oh yeah, the spinning fucking chair with a dude like. The dude, that part's so fucking good, dude. That movie's great. Like, not,
I'm gonna go ahead and say this right now because this is a hot take. Everybody thinks the first two scary movies are like great. Scary Movie 3 and 4 are better than 1 and 2.
yes, I agree.
Dude,
Because I like the Naked
I don't
Gun
agree
humor
with 4.
versus
Like 4 was the first one.
Dude.
4 was the first one where I'm like, oh man, they're kind of losing it a little bit. And but I definitely agree that Scary
4.
Movie
Well, the
3
Wayne
is
brothers
better
were
than
gone
first
after the
two.
second one.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, scary. Well, I mean, we got our Cody call from Scary Movie 3 when the priest is like,
Cody.
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 But the best part about part 4 to me is when they're walking through the woods. And you got Red Man and the other guy, and they're eating that red. He's smoking that red weed, and he coughs up the blood or whatever. He goes, "This stuff's red. You see that?" He goes, "No," but they're like, and I can't remember what he says. The dad's carrying the daughter. And he's like, "Dad, I'm tired." And he's like, "I'm tired too, but I've been carrying your sister this whole time." She comes out from behind him and says, "You haven't been carrying me." And he looks down and he goes, "Well, who have I?" And they pull it off, and there's this little elf-looking dude with red hair. He goes, "I'll pay you." And he just drops him.
The only scene I really remember from that movie, besides the opening, like the Saw thing where Shaquille O'Neal has to hit a free throw, the only movie, like, there's the real estate agent who's trying to sell the house. It's like the Grudge House or whatever, and like,
He's out here trying to drown the kid. It keeps popping
yeah,
up.
and like the hair is like growing in the corner of like one of the rooms or whatever. He's like pulling it down and like stuffing it in his pockets and shit. It's so stupid.
God. I fucking love like. Ugh.
No, yeah, and then
Leslie Nielsen as the president.
Yeah.
As President Bush.
That
It's
was
like
fucking hilarious. Yeah.
he's fucking great, dude. I love it when he's like,
He's like send
Thinking that
flowers to
his
all the
eight-
bitches and hoes.
hey, his aide goes, "Sir, I think you need to get on TV and say there's no such thing as UFOs." He goes, "Don't spell in front of me, damn it." and then he's like, "It's like that's not exactly true." He goes, "Sir," he goes, "last Thanksgiving, the UFO crashed, and unfortunately there was a mix-up, and the body was sent down to the kitchen. They shoved stuffing up his ass, and we had it for Thanksgiving dinner. That was the last I saw of it. Oh, scratch that. There were some sandwiches later." At the end, like the fucking little grudge girl, when they think she saved her and released her from the evil, she goes, "Thank you, you saved me." And they're like, "Really?" And she goes, "Nah, I'm just screwing with you." And then he knocks her down the well, going, he doing his airplane bit. He goes, "I just want to tell you good luck. We're all counting on you." You cannot tell me there's a better comedy actor than Leslie Nielsen. He's fucking great in the Naked Gun movies, which we will cover at some point. He's great in Scary Movie 3 and 4. He's just fucking fantastic. He's amazing in Airplane. But yeah, so let's see here. Trying to think. There's a controversy with Friday the 13th Part 2 of who's actually Jason. There are two different actors. The guy Warrington Gillette, I believe is how you say his last name. Let me make sure this is the right guy. Okay, Warrington Gillette, yeah, like the razor. He's the unmasked Jason. He was casted as Jason. He says he was up for the role that eventually went to the guy who played Paul, which is John Fury. Fury, I guess. I'm sorry. But Warrington said he was a stuntman. In reality, he was never a stuntman. He lied about his credentials. So they had to get somebody else. The guy's name is Steve. Uh, that's keys. I can't say. They call him Steve Dash. He's a fucking Brooklyn, New Yorker, attitude like a badass, like stunt guy. They had him, so he's played Jason where he's masked up the entire time. That's him running around with the potato sack over his head. And Warrington has the one scene where Jason's unmasked and all that shit. In the credits, Warrington is credited as Jason, and Steve has been credited as a stunt double, even though he did all the fucking work. He's Jason. He's the one that's made all the movements and shit that you know from this movie. I don't know where they got the inspiration for the potato sack over his head. It's pretty obvious. Like 1976, there was a movie called The Town That Dreaded Sundown, which is actually, I think, is a very good cult movie. It's about the true life killings that happened in Texarkana, Arkansas, and Texarkana, Texas. The guy in that movie wears a potato sack over his head with two eyes cut open, and he kills people. So I don't know if they thought about that or they just saw this sack, this pillowcase laying around. It's like, let's just put this over his head because they had no idea what to do with it, or if that was a genuine thing. In the Crystal Lake Memories, they do mention that movie. Warrington Gillette did. He goes, "It's probably from The Town That Dreaded Sundown," but nobody else confirmed it. Jason's pretty small in this movie. He's probably like 5'10", I want to say. And, I mean, if you're 5'10", like Cody is not, he thinks that's tall. I'm 6'2.5" in my bare feet, so that's small to me.
You say
There's going to be taller Jasons going forward.
I'm six.
No, I didn't say how tall. You're not 6 foot, Cody.
Yeah.
I know you say you're 6 foot. You ain't 6 foot.
Yeah, I'm 6 foot.
Yeah.
And your bare feet at the doctor's office?
With my bare cock is.
Yeah, when I prop myself up.
If I'm bouncing on my cock, I'm 6 feet. And it's like, yeah, it's measuring Cody. Yes, sir, you're 5'8". He's like, hold on. He puts his pants down. Sir, you're 6'3".
Wait a second, check this out.
Watch this little trick. Damn, how do you get the head to bend that way? I know, right? But no, so this guy's about 5'10", I'd say. Like when we played the Friday the 13th game, all the Jasons are the same size because they had Kane Hodder, who played Jason in 7, 8, 9, and 10, do the motion capture. But obviously they were pretty faithful. Once you get the mask taken off each version of Jason, they all look like the same, like they're supposed to for that movie. But this guy obviously is a little bit shorter, and obviously Jason runs around in this movie. Versus you don't think about Jason running whatsoever. And he runs in 3 and he runs in 4. It's not until much later on is when he just doesn't. So
kind of hard to
why. Like, I don't want to go into like
your
how
flesh is rotting off your bones.
It's hard.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. Like you're talking about flesh. This would feel like this is irritating. Steve Dash was saying, like when he was doing the scenes, like the potato sack kept like going in and out as he was running and as he was breathing. You would just think like you put on a pillowcase over your head, it's going to keep moving and shit. So they had to put skin tape over his eye, like for the potato sack, so it would stay in that one spot so he could run doing the scene. Mm-hmm. And he said that, and they did that for a while, but it ended up fucking rubbing the skin off around his eye. He had like fucking like I don't know like 1st degree like a minor burn mark. You know, just from like getting rubbed raw and shit like that. So that happened around his eye. I'm like, good God, that's some dedication. I'd be pissed not be credited as Jason. So, because I don't know if you get paid differently as the Actors Guild and shit like that. But yeah, just throughout the movie, you got teenagers or, you know, like some people in their early 20s, they get killed off one by one. There's a really good kill that it's claimed to have been stolen from this movie called Twitch of the Death Nerve, which is a 1971 movie where a couple is having sex and then somebody throws a spear through them. So this happens in this movie. The reason why there's no sex scene in this movie is because it was revealed. I read this somewhere. I thought it was in Crystal Lake Memories, but it wasn't. The lady who plays Sandra, and it's ironic. Her name is the actress's name is Marta Kober. So it's my last name without the R after the KO. She was like 17 when the filming this part, so she was a minor. I don't think she told anybody that, and they felt they had to cut all that shit out. Like, oh wait, hold up, what? So yeah, and Sandra, remember her? Like for later on, there's her brother shows up in part 4. But yeah, so like I said, this movie, like the beginning, Alice when she gets killed, that's 2 months after the first movie, and then 5 years later. So technically, if we're looking at the timeline, this should be 1985 that this is happening. But then the timeline is going to go absolutely fucking nuts at some point because there's a lot of time jumps in the future, and you're like, this is still the 80s. This doesn't make any sense. They did bring back Betsy Palmer to do the voiceover and the still camera shot of Pamela Voorhees. I thought myself it was a nice, cool twist because Jenny, which is Amy Steele, she's the final girl. They talk about her being a child psychiatrist, and she talks a child psychology she's going to school for. And then she talks about Jason, how he's a retard in the woods, a mongoloid.
Yeah, they say that.
And but I think it's interesting that she happens upon the shrine that Jason has to his mom, and she puts on her mom's sweater to make him think. And Jason does that little Michael Myers head twitch. It's like, what? Like, is this my mom talking to me?
He does that head
So
twist. He does
that's
that
all
head
he's
twist
seen,
like when you're
obviously.
talking to a dog, and the dog's like twists his head because it
Yeah.
can't really understand what you're saying.
But Michael Myers does the same thing.
How
though,
did she
too.
know that was his mom's sweater?
Well, I think he knew because
spaghetti on it.
she knew it was. It's a.
It has what on it?
Well, no,
Spaghetti.
she does have like. The story is her mom got beheaded. His mom got beheaded. So I think a shrine with a head there, she's gonna think, hey, that's his mom. And you don't really see the body there, but there's a decomposed body in the scene that's supposed to be Alice from the first movie.
Yeah.
That's where Jason, because there's an ice pick going through her
She
skull.
always
I
wore
just-
that
I just-
sweater.
I just want to pause and appreciate. We'll see if Owen appreciated the joke I made about the spaghetti. Do you understand why I said spaghetti?
Mom's spaghetti. Knees weak, arms are heavy. There's
Yeah,
vomit on
okay.
There's vomit on a sweater already, dude.
Mom spaghetti.
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah, I saw the rotting, the other like decaying corpse or whatever, and figured that was Alice. I couldn't get a good enough look at it to tell, but because they said that she disappeared,
I think they.
so I kind of assumed.
Yeah, there's blood everywhere, but she was
Who
dead.
did the
Yeah, like the still.
Who did the
what?
special effects for this? Was it the same guy?
I'm glad you asked because no, it wasn't, and I did say earlier it wasn't.
Yeah,
Fucker.
I wouldn't
Okay.
listen.
So Tom Savini. So here's the thing: Tom Savini. They asked him to come back. He said nah.
Oh, okay.
And then
He said yet.
let's see here. I'm trying to find
When did you say that?
That was like an hour ago.
earlier in the
That
movie.
was like 1,000 years ago. Look, I wasn't on the call then. Okay, look, I
Were
was
you
taking a
not?
shit.
No, I think you were.
Yeah,
I
'cause
know,
that-
I know
that
I was. I know I was because we weren't fucking talking about the movie when I was taking a shit.
Yeah, that was a
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Let's go ahead and try to get this finished up, guys. We're almost an hour and a half. Hold on. I don't want this episode to go too much longer than the length of the fucking movie.
Hour and a half of these nuts.
All right,
he
so-
sticks you in.
Oh Lord. All right. So special effects artist Tom Savini. They asked him to come back. He said no. They actually got Stan Winston to do this movie, but scheduling conflicts, he had to pull out. So they were handed to a guy named Carl Fullerton, who was like starting out in his career. So this is his first time. I think the special effects look
Yeah.
pretty good in this movie.
I was say so.
You know who
Um,
didn't pull out? Is the guy that owned the truck.
Elias Voorhees.
No,
Um,
the guy that owned the truck when he was banging his girlfriend in the cabin.
So,
Well, he couldn't. She was on top of him. She was aggressively having sex with him on top of him. I'm like, Jesus
the
Christ.
guy in the
She
wheel-
likes it.
That's not
the
bad.
guy in the wheelchair was gonna get fucked too. That's the best kill in the movies when he gets hit in the head. He fucking falls down like the flight of stairs that come out of nowhere.
And it does that freeze frame.
Yeah, the freeze frame too. I'm willing to bet they did the freeze frame so because it was probably like a puppet and they didn't want to show off that.
Yeah, that's a good call. They probably got.
It's a dummy body. Obviously, the actor's not going down the fucking stairs.
Yeah, they got. It probably got to a point in the shot where like it started looking silly, so they just kind of.
Yeah, that too.
Did that effect to save
it was silly when he fucking just suddenly ends up on the fucking 20 flights of stairs and falls down everyone. That was the best kill in the movie, though. Honestly,
dude, it's fucking phenomenal. Everybody
wheelchair
loves it.
man's worst enemy, a guy in a wheelchair's worst enemy, a flight of stairs.
This might sound insensitive.
I think it's kind of ironic.
Yeah. Okay.
The girl that's interested in him, I can't remember most of their names in this movie. She is like raring to go, right? She's like, man, I'm gonna go put these fucking satin granny panties on, and I'm gonna fuck this guy.
Satin brown panties.
It can't be that good. It's a fucking. Did she
ever ask the guy if his penis actually works?
She does. She says,
yeah, she did.
She's like, is it just the legs? And he's like, I get by.
Okay.
I'm just thinking.
I don't know if y'all want me to.
It's pretty ironic for this. I kind of like notice it. You can kind of notice like things when people are acting and they're not super comfortable. I thought the guy who played Mark, his name is Tom McBride. He was an openly gay actor in the '80s. So he was playing like this like completely like straight character. I'm like, yeah, you can kind of tell when he goes to kiss her is like. The way I'd like to pay attention to how people kiss anyway. It felt like the blonde couple were really getting into it. Like they were probably fucking off screen anyway.
Oh yeah, I mean they shoved that damn boom mic right in their face apparently because all you hear is
exactly. But then with them, you see the kiss and he doesn't know exactly what to do with his hands. And it's funny in that scene if you watch her, she doesn't really know what to do with the joint when she's trying to smoke it. And because she's never done it before. And she said in Crystal Lake Memories, like, yeah, it was pretty obvious I didn't know what to do, and everybody on set let me know it. So it seemed like everybody had a good time making this movie. Real quick thing on Alice and Steve, the guy who played Jason. That scene where she's raising the machete to try to strike him down when he's looking at her thinking that she's a mom. The scene is he's supposed to pick up the pickaxe and stop it, and that's what you see. Well, the scene before that, when they shot it, he didn't get his hands up in time or she was going too fast. She split his middle finger wide open. He had to go to the emergency room and get 13 stitches in his middle finger because it was a real machete.
I said, ouch.
And it was funny. They had... Do what?
I said, ouch.
Yeah, and it's funny because he says this story. I think it was pretty funny. They already had done the makeup for the ending of the movie where the machete is in his shoulder. So he's still in full makeup. They rush him to the emergency room because obviously he's bleeding. And he says he goes up to the desk with the machete in his shoulder and he asks the lady, do you have anything for a headache? I got a splitting headache. So that was pretty funny. And Steve Dash, unfortunately, has passed away. He passed away 2018. I knew it wasn't that long ago, but I knew it wasn't that close. But
honestly, if I wouldn't. I'm not surprised that anyone above the age of like anyone besides like the actual teenagers or whatever in this movie, I wouldn't be surprised if you told me that all of them were dead because this movie came out in 1981. That's fucking 43 years ago.
Nah, Tom McBride did die of AIDS complications in '95.
AIDS complications?
That's, the guy, but he was the openly gay actor I was telling you about.
Yeah.
So I mean, like that, like unfortunately, the knowledge of AIDS at the time was not what it needed to be. Obviously, it became a quote unquote pandemic, but they just didn't know how. Like people didn't know how to protect themselves from it. Obviously, it's like condoms, the thing that cuts off the good feeling of sex. I don't want to wear that. Fuck. So these damn birds. Shut up.
Shut the fuck
up. All right,
up.
Let's see. Is there anything else I want to go over? This movie is very much like the start of something. When people talk about like like a trilogy of movies, I think about Friday the 13th, 2, 3, and 4, not 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
One's completely separate. What's funny, Cody?
The,
Go ahead.
the bird, like every time you're like, you're like, shut up. The weird thing about this movie, squawk.
Shut up.
Like every time.
I know because he hears me up here and he wants me to come let him out.
Every time you start to talk, you just hear the bird in the background.
Yeah, he eventually gives up. He's like, fuck.
So correct me if I'm wrong. The reboot, did it pull elements from 2, 3, and 4 into it, or was it 1, 2, and 3 into it?
It was 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Ah, okay.
Because at the very beginning, you have his mom getting killed, and then you see him wearing a potato sack, and then he gets the hockey mask, and then he ends up getting killed at the end of the movie and shit.
Yeah,
so.
they just kind of cram it all into one movie.
Yeah, and I'll say this of the reboots that started with 2003's Texas Chainsaw Massacre and ended with Freddy Krueger's Nightmare on Elm Street in 2010.
Yep, that's the name of it.
Friday the 13th. Yeah, Friday the 13th of 2009 is the best of those reboots. I don't give a fuck what you say, how much money anybody. That's the best one of all.
Actually, I don't. I've only ever seen the Friday 13th.
No,
reboot
I like the Freddy Krueger movie where they openly talk about him diddling little
No,
kids.
I wasn't going to say that.
that
I was going to say
reboot?
I was going to say the Texas Chainsaw Massacre one is probably the best out of those.
Nah, Friday the 13th is better.
No.
Because it definitely ain't Rob Zombie's Halloween.
Nah, that's the best one.
No. What's funny about all that? Ultimately, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I'm gonna shut my fucking door real quick.
Ultimately, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Squeak, squeak, squeak.
He's about to Texas Chainsaw Massacre these birds.
Ultimately, what's entertaining is Michael Bay and two of his buddies were the producers of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre reboot, the prequel, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the beginning. They were the producers of Friday the 13th, and then the producers of Nightmare on Elm Street. Mm-hmm. Well, the reboot for Texas Chainsaw Massacre and then the beginning had two different directors. And they wanted the director of the beginning to do the Friday the 13th movie, and either he declined or scheduling wasn't that. So they had the director of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre reboot do the Friday the 13th reboot. So those movies are as closely related as you can get. Same directors, the same three producers. So, but yeah, no, Friday the 13th, that's the one that I can watch. I like, and it's fun. The only thing that will put Texas Chainsaw Massacre above that is with Arlie Emery in it as his brother.
Yeah,
and that's not even
the sheriff, right?
Go ahead. Yeah, he played the sheriff. Oh, he's the sheriff because he killed the sheriff.
Right? Yeah, he's not really the sheriff. He much like a man slaughtering a king to take the throne. he became the sheriff of this small county.
That's how it
middle
works.
Of nowhere, Texas.
I think.
Yeah.
Out here in Nowheresville South.
But his best line delivery in those two movies is actually in the beginning when he shoots the sheriff. Mm-hmm. He bends down with the shotgun in his hand. He goes, "Holy shit! I just killed the whole fucking sheriff's department." Yeah,
dude, the beginning isn't bad. It's just the ending of the beginning is just kind of damper, kind of ruins the movie for me. Because I don't know if you remember the ending of the beginning, but the final girl is driving away, and Leatherface pops up in her back seat, and it's like, what the fuck? There's no way in hell he got out to the car before she did. It was just such a bullshit ending because it's well, we can't have anyone survive, but it was just you could have done something else besides this, but whatever. That's neither here nor there.
Actually, I like the beginning better than I did the reboot, to be honest with you.
Oh, I've only ever seen the beginning once.
I just thought it was a lot better. You see Emery a lot more in the beginning than you do the first movie. Mm-hmm. So I like that a lot better. Yeah. And
I'll probably pick them. I'll probably pick them both at some point, but not anytime soon.
I'm sure you will. You do pick bad movies. I'm just kidding.
What about that other Rob? Is that other Rob Zombie movie any good? I can't remember with the clowns, where they're House of a Million Thousand Fucking Corpses or whatever it's called.
Oh, House of a Thousand Corpses, okay.
That's not the clown movie, is it?
What'd you say?
Yeah, that's what he's talking about. House of a Thousand Corpses, or the clown guy.
House of a Million Corpses.
Dude, I'm just not really I'm not a fan of Rob Zombie's like filmmaking.
He said, "Burn with the witches."
In the back of my
Suck all the ditches.
Suck on my penis and fuck on my weenus.
But every Rob Zombie movie I've tried to watch, like I've never been able to make it through the entire thing. I always just like bail out of it. Like this fucking sucks every time. I did that with Halloween.
Yeah, he has a.
But,
I like the.
I used to think the Halloween movie was good, but then I watched Halloween 2 once. I'm like, this movie fucking blows. Like, what the fuck?
Well, oh shit.
I like the idea of some of his movies. Like I like him trying to do the grindhouse thing, but that's the thing. I don't know. I don't think.
If he has an original property he's making, I think it's a lot better than having some established property.
Well,
like House of a Thousand Corpses is pretty good. The sequel to it, The Devil's Rejects, has nothing to do with the first movie. I'm like, that fucking sucks, dude.
The story isn't the story of the Halloween movies though that like when he made the reboot, he wanted to do it a certain way, but the studio or like the producer, I can't remember that guy's name, but they were like, no, you got to do. You got to do it like this certain way or whatever. So he did, and then the second movie he kind of like had free reign and he just kind of did it the way he wanted to do it. But they apparently I was watching a video the other day where they were talking about how he had an idea for a third Halloween film and like it never got made, mostly because by the time he got done making the second movie, he was just so fucking sick of dealing with the studio and everything, so he's just like, I'm never doing this again, you know.
Well, it's very funny when I listen to people do interviews nowadays talking about something in the past with like 2020 hindsight, because that's definitely not the fucking reason. He wasn't going to do the second movie because they were going to have a French duo do the second movie because he said he wasn't going to do it, and then he thought about it. It's like, no, I want to do it. The second movie made $19 million. It didn't make any kind of fucking money. That's why there wasn't a third movie made. Like there was plans
because people didn't like the first movie he made.
There was already plans around. So that was 2009 that came out. 2013 was the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3D movie, which started we're ignoring all the sequels but the first movie, and this is a direct sequel to the first movie. When that movie came out, there was already plans for a Halloween movie to do that. Ignore all the sequels but 1 and 2. And then have it pick up after that. So Rob Zombie wasn't going to be involved whatsoever. Like, after that movie bombed and made no fucking money, and even the fan base hated it, he had no future with it. So this whole, he had an idea for a third one,
Maybe the video I watched then was conflicting the two scenarios, and maybe they were conflicting the statement of he wasn't going to do the second one because, he didn't want to do it or whatever. And then he changed, like, maybe they were conflicting that with the reason why the third one didn't get made. But supposedly he did have some kind of outline in place for a third movie. But yeah, I mean,
thank God he didn't do it because it would have sucked.
I've never seen Halloween 2. Like I said, I only ever watched like half of the first one he did, and I thought it was fucking awful. And so I never bothered watching the second one.
I will say this. Those two movies will always be at the bottom of my list, but Halloween Ends really fought with Rob Zombie's Halloween 1 to take his place at the bottom of the list. Like, it's fucking awful.
Yeah.
As bad as everyone thinks Halloween Resurrection is, with like Busta Rhymes kicking Michael Myers' ass, Halloween Ends is a big fucking turd.
Halloween Resurrection is not a great movie, but at least it's like a funny movie. Like there's some kind of like, you can get some kind of enjoyment out of watching that movie, as like just because of like how ridiculous some of it is. But yeah, I agree. I would, out of all of them I've seen, I would put Rob Zombies at the bottom.
Yeah, those two will always be at the bottom. Halloween Ends is like
Halloween Ends is down there too. Like I mean, it's
that. When we get to here's the best part. Friday the 13th Part 5 did what Halloween Ends did. And it's a better movie because there's more Jason after that fucking movie. There wasn't going to be any more Michael. Like with the story you did with Halloween Ends, which first off, Michael wasn't supernatural in the 2018 movie, and now when Halloween Ends comes out, his evil's supernatural. It just transfers person to person like a HIV or some shit. And it's like, okay, so now it's supernatural, and you don't have Michael in over half the fucking movie, and this is an 80s rom-com. This is fucking stupid. I don't want to get into it. Like, you don't do that for the last movie of a trilogy. Could you imagine watching Return of the Jedi and Darth Vader's
if
only
anyone's
in like
interested,
5 minutes of the movie?
If anyone's interested in our thoughts on that, we covered both Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends on separate episodes, so go check those out, please.
I get so angry thinking about that. Like, you guys just killed that fucking off. I'm glad I didn't spend any money. Like, I thought I want to support the Halloween franchise. I love this franchise. I'm gonna go see the movies. And then something told me to watch that one because I remember watching Halloween Kills first, and then still going to see it in the theater. But I'm like, let me watch this first. And when we watched it, I'm like, I'm not fucking watching that again. Good God, dude. Like, it got worse because I've watched it twice. It got worse the second time I watched it. I loved the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022 movie. And the more I watched it, the more I fucking liked it because I had a lot of fucking fun with it. That's the opposite of Halloween Ends. It's like, you guys are so stupid.
You ever stopped to wonder what would have happened if they would have just let John Carpenter and, what's her name? Deborah, I can't remember. Deborah something. If they would have just let them, like, continue on making, like, the anthology shit instead of...
Yeah, they would have made one more movie that... They would have made one more movie that made $5 million, and then they would have been booted off the franchise. Like, you guys, here's the thing. This is funny, too. I'm going to go into this, too, real quick, before we finish this episode. Sean Cunningham had the idea. Damn. Sean Cunningham...
idea, like, anthology shit.
Yeah, he wanted Friday the 13th to be an anthology. Him and Victor Miller wanted that. And the studio was like, no, we're not doing that. And let me tell you this. Halloween 3, if you put a movie out that said Friday the 13th Part 2 or Halloween 3, whatever it was, and say this is an anthology movie, it's not going to be as popular as the other ones. And guess what? When you don't make money, you don't continue with the idea. Yeah, this theological idea is like, we can make all these movies and just have endless lives of cycles and shit like that. No. If the movies don't make money, you don't continue with the idea. Halloween had the opportunity to do that. And everybody walked away from it going, where the fuck is Michael Myers? That's who we fucking wanted to see. We want to have fun with this guy killing people. We don't care about this, how much quality are you going to get from an anthology film with it? Every one of them probably being a first-time director.
They didn't, people back then just didn't know what they had, you know what I mean? Like, Halloween 3 is the best of the best right there, so.
I love Halloween 3, but it's
I
not
like
the
Halloween
best
3
of the
a
best.
lot. I think that's awesome.
I love Halloween 3.
You can do anthology horror and be successful. American Penis Story.
It's just, I think their mistake definitely was they already had
it was Halloween 2.
Well,
Halloween 2 is
American Horror Story. American Horror Story is a TV show, though. Owen. It's
American
not a movie.
Penis Story.
So there's a difference. If you sat there and if you said out front, hey, this is an anthology series. This is the first Friday the 13th movie. Yeah, it might work if people want to go have something different. But at that point,
Tales from the
people
what
just
about
wanted to
Tales
see what
from
the guy
the
was going
Hood?
to do next.
Got you there.
Oh, that's also that's a TV show too, Owen.
What about Leprechaun in the Hood?
Yeah, I mean that was great. But
Or
no,
Leprechaun
I
Back
get
to
the
the
whole
Hood.
like
No, dog.
everybody-
Tales from the Hood
here's
is a
the thing,
movie.
Everybody romanticizes.
Go ahead.
I was talking about Tales from the Crypt. I thought you were making a joke
No, I'm
about
being
that.
for Tales from the Hood is a real fucking movie. It's
Oh, look, I'll just say this. Everybody romanticizes this idea of, like, if it was just an anthology series, it'd be, like, really fucking original. No, I'm fucking happy I got 12 Jason movies. So fuck you and your anthology bullshit. No one else would have fucking watched, and they would have been made for DVD movies.
oh yeah, I don't care that Friday the 13th wasn't an
I mean-
anthology series. Like it's fine.
No, I'm talking about Halloween. Like, Owen goes, like, wouldn't it have been better if they'd done that? I'm like, no.
Nah, I mean,
like, whatsoever.
I don't know. I just thought it would be an interesting
Season
idea
of
that
the
it could have
Witch-
worked. I don't. It didn't exist, so I don't
Well,
have
they
anything to
did that-
compare it to. You know, I don't.
Well, they tried with that one movie that came out like 6, 8 years ago.
Trick
It's
or
some kind
Treat.
of spooky stories or some
Spooky
shit like
stories
that.
telling your ass.
And
No,
they had
no.
like
Scary stories to tell in the dark is not. It's not.
Yeah,
an
it was going to
anthology.
be though. They were going to
Trick
continue on.
or
with it.
treat's probably the closest thing.
No.
I think.
All right, so hold up. Wait a minute. Let me put some
All right.
pimping in it. Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. They were planning on making a sequel to the first one because it does leave off on a cliffhanger. I think the confusion with the anthology thing is that Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark is a series of 3 books that have short stories in them that are all just completely disconnected, and then they took those and they like kind of made one, or they took a bunch of those and made like one movie that featured elements from different stories within those books. But yeah, they were setting it up for a sequel. Like at the very end, they're like driving off somewhere to go like find somebody or save somebody or something. But I guess they just for whatever reason didn't make it. I like that movie, but then again, that's also I grew up reading those books and I loved them.
They said by
But,
August 2023, the project is still in development.
Shit, it's been in development for a while then, but whatever.
Well, I mean,
we'll
it's
see.
in April 22. They announced the sequel because the movie came out in 2019, so it only happened 5 years ago.
Damn, that's still all right. I mean, I hope it gets made. I mean, I like that. I like the first one, and like I said, I love those books when I was growing up. So
But yeah, I don't think like the anthology thing would have worked. It wouldn't have made money. I think people wanted to continue on and have a good time with these characters.
Yeah, definitely. That's
Um,
probably. I mean, for making a franchise, that's probably your best bet. So.
Well, see, it's an accidental franchise. It wasn't like they went into it like this is what we're going to do. We have this plan. No, each movie had to be more grotesque, and that's what drew people in. That's why people hate. That's why the critics hated the franchise because they just looked at it as a cheap knockoff of Halloween. And yeah, the first movie was a cheap off knockoff of Halloween, but every Halloween after that was a cheap knockoff of Friday the 13th, which I find extremely hilarious.
until there was a new player in the game by the name of Freddy Krueger.
He
Yeah,
said.
Wes
the
Craven.
child
He said,
pedophile
"Stop
everybody
talking,
likes.
bitch."
Welcome to my world, bitch. Yeah, what's funny? Look, it's funny that people like Freddy Krueger because he says the word "bitch" and he makes jokes. He was a child pedophile.
He
from the
says,
word
"Why
go.
don't you suck my
That's all right.
penis, bitch?"
That's not. Now, we're gonna get to it. I don't.
No, well, Wes Craven was planning on doing that, but he's like, no, let's downtone the child. He's just a child killer. How about that? But that was
Yeah,
the
well,
original premise of it. the
Yeah,
story.
yeah, I know. What I'm saying is like I know Freddy has a cult following because of like, especially like in the sequels, at least like 2 through 6, it gets like kind of really like fucking bonkers. But just that first movie, like genuinely, is like a great piece of horror. Like it's a great horror film. Like,
Hell,
and he's far more toned down than like you see like later on, like in part 3, where he turns into a fucking television and grabs somebody and shoves their head inside of it. You know, like. But the first one is like an excellent fucking horror movie.
hell, Part 4 made like $45 million, the most of any of these movies ever made. Like that was like peak MTV. Freddy Krueger was Part 4.
Yeah. Well, I'm not. Yeah, like I said, I mean, it was definitely like he got more popular when he got like kind of bonkers. It's just like I said. I think people argue. I know a lot of people say like Part 3 is their favorite, the Dream Warriors, and I understand. But like for me, like the first, none of those other movies beat the first film. And I even like I love New Nightmare, but I think a lot of people didn't like New Nightmare because it went back to like let's like actually try and be a more of a straight horror film again and not be like so off the wall ridiculous with all this shit. And so I don't think people really liked it, but those 2 movies in that franchise specifically are like my favorites. Anyway, we'll
So we
get
get
to
to
those.
the end where it's Freddy versus Jason.
Yeah, and he turns into a fucking like pot slug or whatever.
Wait, I remember
Does,
that.
and he gets his ass kicked by Jason.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
turns into like a fucking
love-
slug or something. I remember that, but like just so vaguely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's because the
Yeah,
pothead
it's-
or whatever is like super fucked up and high, and like he sees Freddy, but he's like this weird like slug creature or whatever.
He said, "I'm a slug, bitch."
That shit's fucking. That shit's funny to me because I mean I remember like when that movie came out and I was like, Jason's got to fucking win here. There's no way they're gonna have Freddy win. And
Yeah.
sure enough, they made Jason win. I'm like, yes.
I also often think, man, it would have been awesome if we would ever got that fucking Freddy versus Jason versus Ash film. Man, I really wish they would have fucking made that.
In hindsight, I don't think so because of Bruce Campbell and what he thinks his character is.
Well, yeah, that was
Like
the problem, right? Is like he wants like complete creative control over the character, and like it would have. But if they would have like just like, hey, get the writers back for Freddy versus Jason, let's do this fucking thing. Let's have Ash like try and hunt him down. You know, like it would have been. I think it would have been good, but
the guys who wrote for Freddy versus Jason is the one that wrote the Friday the 13th reboot.
oh yeah,
Same duo, yeah. They brought him back for that. Like, but like Bruce Campbell, like that whole Evil Dead shit. I got nothing but fucking like disdain for that whole franchise. I don't give a shit like what people think about it, what Cody thinks about it, or Alex or anybody about those movies. The way he like has seriously, he takes his fucking character that he didn't want to be in a Mortal Kombat game. But he's like, they can be in my game. Yeah, the game that was dead on fucking arrival. You dumb fuck.
Did he really say that?
Get the fuck.
no,
Yes,
so,
he said
yeah,
that.
So
well, he did say that about Mortal Kombat.
It could be in my game.
no, hold on, yeah. No, so the Mortal Kombat thing, yeah, I remember them like teasing him for like one of the combat passes for Mortal Kombat 11, right? So
you heard the chainsaws and all that shit.
yeah, there was a chainsaw because there was like one teaser where like you heard like the Joker laughing or something, and like you heard a chainsaw noise, so everyone's like, all right, finally they're putting Ash in this game, and
well,
it came out
Bruce
later
Campbell
that,
even tweeted about it.
yeah, they ended up pivoting, and I think they ended up putting like another DC character or some shit in there because
No,
like,
it was no. The original they replaced Ash with the Joker.
oh,
That's
okay,
the whole
okay,
deal.
that's what it was, yeah. So
Yeah,
they
and Bruce
replaced him.
Campbell even tweeted out. He said, "Yeah, this game looks pretty groovy," and he even tweeted
Yeah.
it. And then he's the one that the reason why the deal fell through. And he said later on, and I quote, "Well, I don't think Ash is going to be in a Mortal Kombat game, but Mortal Kombat can be in an Ash game." Like, dude, get the fuck out of here. Your game was dead on arrival. It's a fucking joke. Your franchise. Like, no, I ain't fucking with that. Now, if
It's
you
not
said
a
they're taking
joke,
like.
but
No,
but-
it's like everybody holds reverence for those fucking movies. Let me tell you this: I watched that first movie for this podcast, and I had car sickness, and I was sitting in my fucking because everybody thinks Sam Raimi's cinematography is just some like work of art. No, fucking quit jerking this dumbass
Mortal
off.
Kombat.
These
Mortal Kombat
movies
may have to
are
end up
not
being
shot
one
well.
after MK1.
I mean, you gotta. All right, so like
Well, I guarantee
Personally-
MK1
listen-
sold more than the Ash game.
personally, I love the Evil Dead movies, but my favorite one is the 2013 one, the Fede Alvarez directed one.
wow.
So like, I don't hold like some like great reverence for Sam Raimi as a director necessarily, or Bruce Campbell as his character. Obviously, he's a large part of the Evil Dead, and honestly, in about 3 years, we're gonna end up with more Evil Dead movies that don't have Ash as a main character than we do have, because they've already announced 2 more sequels with 2 different directors, and they're kind of taking this approach of like every movie is going to be its own story in that world or whatever, sort of like Evil Dead Rise was. So like, you know, I'm more excited for the future of Evil Dead anyway, because I've watched Evil Dead Rise like 3 more times since we last watched it for this, and like I like it more and more every time I watch it. Obviously, the Rat King thing at the end is still kind of ridiculous, but and you know the 2013 one's like my favorite. But yeah, I mean Bruce Campbell comes off a bit of a prick when it comes to like protecting that character, especially when you look at what like shit he has done with that character. Like they made 3 games back in like the early to mid 2000s, and those games, like the stories in them are like crap. I mean, they're just garbage. And as an Evil Dead fan, I was really looking forward to Ash being in Mortal Kombat 11. And while I liked the Joker, it was a bit of a disappointment that it's like, well, they had to just like quickly scramble and get something that they had the license to already through Warner Brothers because Bruce Campbell basically fucked them over by dropping out sometime during the process.
Yeah, I
Which,
mean,
by
they
the
had
way,
already developed everything. There was like sound files
yeah,
and
which by
shit,
the
and he
way,
just
people
pretty
were
much said no.
panicking. People were panicking about recently with Mortal Kombat 1 because they thought that when Scream 7, it sounded like it was originally going to be canceled, that they may pull Ghostface from, because Ghostface is pretty much leaked as a new character or whatever. So people were kind of like panicking that was going to happen again, which doesn't sound like it is, at least as far as I've seen. So because they've actually found like voice files for like Homelander and stuff referencing Ghostface directly. So
Ghostface killer.
I mean, we'll
yeah.
see. Like, I don't know if this game, like, they'll release the story DLC. I don't know how much further they're going to go with the continuation of this game. If this game is made like a third of what the last game made, and that's not
Yeah.
good. Like, that's the thing. Like, Street Fighter did their business in 4 months in 1 month.
Yeah.
So and that's not real good for Mortal Kombat. I don't think they want to sit there and say we're going to support this game for multiple years. I highly fucking doubt that, because Warner Brothers said that they want to focus on 3 different franchises for their games. They want to focus on Mortal Kombat, Harry Potter, and whatever going
And
into the
DC,
future. So
yeah.
at DC, so I guarantee you, there's not going to be an Injustice
But-
3. There's going to be another Mortal Kombat game coming
But
forward.
what's fucking stupid is, I know we're like way off on a tangent here. What's stupid about Warner Brothers' approach to all this, and I think we may have talked about this on the last episode. They fucking put
We
out
talk about it
Hogwarts
every
Legacy.
episode.
Yeah, we put out Hogwarts Legacy. They put out Hogwarts Legacy last year, which was the best-selling game of the year. Like, literally, there's only been like 2 times in the last 20 years that a fucking game has sold more than Call of Duty. And last year was one of them, and it was Hogwarts Legacy. And then, like, recently, during their most recent financial call or whatever, they're like, yeah, from now on, we're not going to focus on single-player games anymore. We're just going to make live service stuff. After putting out Suicide Squad this year, which fucking flopped. Like, people are, like, that's another one that's like, oh, yeah, we have all these plans for, like, 6 or 7 seasons of content. Eventually, you'll get to play as the Justice League and all this shit. And, like, people are, like, now wondering, like, are they even going to get fucking season 2 out? Because nobody's playing it. It was dead on arrival. Like, people will play through the single player or whatever, like, the main story, and then they'll just drop out. Like, they don't give a shit about all this Elseworlds stuff that you're putting in here. It's like you put the Joker in there as the first new character, and it's like I think people are just getting tired of the Joker at this point. And it's like,
And
plus, like, Suicide Squad is not, it was not what people wanted from that studio. You know, they wanted more Batman or like a Superman game or something, not Suicide Squad.
that was the last game that they got Kevin Conroy's voice clips into, wasn't
Yeah. Yeah, that's
it?
that's the last.
That's
that's
pretty-
the last.
that's pretty sad.
Kevin Conroy game performance, because I know he's going to be in that. He did voice work for that Infinite Crisis animated film that's coming out, but yeah.
I think they also got
So-
his voice in this multiverse game, which everybody's already shitting on too.
What?
So, the multiverse game.
Kevin Conroy did Batman's voice in that.
Yeah, no, that's what I was saying. Is like I think he did the voice for that too, but everybody's shitting
Yeah.
on the game too. So
Yeah, but of course, because the beta for the game came out like last summer or whatever, and then they kind of, the beta was up for like 2 or 3 months, and then they pulled it, and they just obviously re-released it or whatever. I re-downloaded it just so I could unlock Jason, and I played like 3 or 4 matches as Jason, and then I installed it. I'm like, all right, I've had enough.
yeah. If you're gonna play Jason, might as well just play MKX or just the Friday the
Yeah.
13th game. Like I saw the gameplay of that multiverse. I'm like, man, that looks like shit.
All-
And of course,
My joke-
Marvel
my-
can't put out a good game either. So I mean, I'm not gonna sit there and like
You say
talk
Marvel?
like all this fucking shit. Oh yeah, like Disney cannot put out a game from Marvel that's like worth a shit. They put out Midnight Suns and no one gave a
yeah,
shit.
yeah.
I mean,
And
Spider-Man
stuff like
2
that.
came
Sony,
out. Spider-Man-
Sony's
Well, that's
well,
Sony.
that's Sony. Not
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
that's a
if you want to
Sony
if you want to get
production
technical
with
about
Disney.
it, then Disney doesn't make games; they just license the games out. Like
yeah, well, they don't
Midnight
license
Suns,
them out to good studios.
Yeah, Midnight Suns was made by the team that did XCOM, and it was published by 2K. But
And
no,
no
I
one
mean,
liked it.
people liked it. It just wasn't popular because it's a strategy game, and it's like, again, that's not. I mean, it's just not a genre that's ever popular unless it's like Civ,
Total
or,
War.
you know,
Star
City
Wars, Knights of the
Skylines.
Total
Republic.
penis.
Well, that's an RPG, but yeah.
Oh yeah, a bunch of fucking nerds. Anyway, so y'all's favorite kill was it the wheelchair guy?
Yeah,
Let me think. Yeah, probably because the other ones are just. I mean, they're just too tame. Like you don't really see much of anything happening, and
Yeah,
So.
of course that's for good reason, unfortunately.
for
Yeah,
comedic purposes, my favorite kill was the sheriff.
yeah. Damn it! Oh my head! Oh
For-
fuck!
Well, for comedic purposes, my favorite kill was the sheriff killing somebody driving the car. Because it was so funny listening to him tell that he goes, before that scene and after that scene, I've never driven a car. I'm like, what the fuck? Don't you think that would be like in the casting question? Can you drive?
How would you
No.
ever get
Okay, you're hired.
roles in a movie if you can't drive a car?
Well, that's the thing is actors just
1981.
lie, right? Isn't there like people comment a lot on like especially like old Western films where one of the questions that you get asked during the audition process is like, can you ride a horse? And pretty much everybody would say yes because they wanted the job, and then they get to the day I was like, oh shit, I don't know how to ride a horse, you know.
That's that silly shit, man. So ultimately, my favorite kill of this movie, man, I don't know. I'd have to fucking say, I like the sheriff kill because they unintentionally ripped it off in Halloween 2, so it just kind of shows that Halloween was already copying Friday the 13th. And I like the whole shit when you finally see Jason and he's fighting with Paul and chasing Jenny around. I love that whole part of this movie. Yeah. So my favorite kill, I'd have to say for me is the sheriff, just because it's like straight in the crown of the fucking head of his beautiful hair. Bam, right there. And then the wheelchair kill is pretty good. The spear through the two people is pretty good, even though you don't get a chance to see it because the MPAA cut it. And yeah, so all right, so we'll go into recommendations. I already know the answers to this, but I'll go with Owen.
Nah, I don't know. I don't recommend it unless you like Friday the 13th or slasher movies. And even then, like, the kills are kind of tame in this, and I feel like a lot of people are coming in these for the kills. And the titties. The titties weren't very good in here. There's only one pair.
Yeah.
So.
All right, Owen, Cody, sir.
Yeah, I have to agree. I guess if you're a slasher fan, I would still recommend it just because, you know, Friday the 13th is just a like iconic slasher franchise. But if you're just like a general horror enthusiast, I probably wouldn't watch it because on that scale, it's not really great. So, yeah, that's where I stand with it.
Oh, I do recommend it. I think it's great because it is an improvement. I know everybody's like, oh, the same formula. But if you go back and watch the first movie, the cinematography is a little, oh, what's that motherfucker again? Well, I was just making fun of. I can't remember. His name's not important enough for me to make fun of. Yeah. Sam Raimi. There you go. It's that kind of shaky. They didn't have a hard camera for the first Friday the 13th. They did for this one, so it does make the experience a little less dizzy. I think the kills. I mean, I like Steve Miner's direction. He ended up doing a lot of like Dawson's Creek and did a couple movies. I know he did Halloween H2O with Jamie Lee Curtis and all that. So this movie kind of launched his career. But yeah, I do recommend it because, like, I was reading a review. This movie was a transition. It went from the first movie to this movie, like transitioning until like what the franchise would become. Because the first movie is so much different than the rest of these movies, and this was the transition film to that. So the next one I'll be covering, I do recommend this movie. The next one I'll be covering, obviously, will be part 3 in 3D if you have it. If you don't, it's all right. But the next movie we'll be covering today is Owen, sir.
Yeah, I'm going to pick Fury Road. That'll probably be the last. That'll finish off the Mad Max shit.
You don't want to watch Furiosa?
No. I mean, we might once it goes to streaming pretty soon because nobody watched that fucking thing.
You don't want to. You don't want to watch the second half of part 3
Oh
again?
hell no! I think I've had enough times. I've watched part 3 enough now. I'm done.
I'll never watch it again. I can tell you right now, I'll never watch that fucker again. Like, that movie was the biggest you can miss me with that shit I've ever seen in my entire fucking life.
Yeah, really. I mean, the first half was good, and then even the first half did have issues, but like the second half, it's so funny how hard it is that they're just like, nope, fuck this.
I think that fucking Mel Gibson had a really cool look with the long hair in the first half of the movie.
Yeah.
Then they cut his hair, he looks like a fucking poodle in the second half. It's like, good God, this is fucking
He's like,
terrible.
all right, cut my fucking hair, mate.
Mate, what the fuck? Where'd this gray streak from? This wasn't
He's
here.
like,
And the other kids were
he's
like, we were using our
Yeah, they're-
we were using our cum to make you stronger. Like,
He's
what?
like, what? I've got fucking knot in me here, mate. Come on.
Hey, Cody, what trashy movie were you picking after Fury Road?
I mean, I don't have to pick anything. We can just fucking skip it. I mean,
We should watch.
I know you were.
Uh,
I knew it. He already said it was going to be something. I'm like, oh God, I remember watching this movie terrifying.
We should watch Sydney Sweeney movie
We'll
where
see.
she fucks that guy.
We should watch that movie.
Yeah, which
City
one?
Slickers 2.
No. So I was thinking of Blair Witch Project, but
Oh, that's what I thought you were going with. Like,
the more I think about it, the less I want to do it. Because my original idea was I would just do all three of them, but kind of want to do that. I think I'm going to do Hereditary.
well, goddamn
So-
you.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
dude,
think
I
that's
watched
what it
that.
was,
I'm
Hereditary.
gonna watch-
Dude, that movie's crazy. That movie fucking crazy.
That movie scares the shit
not.
out of me. Like the last 20 minutes or whatever is like
Grandma.
terrifying. But yeah, I think I'll do
Hey,
Hereditary.
wait, is that the
and
one-
then, like,
Is that the one with the grandma
go ahead.
swallowing the kid's head?
I don't think so.
Okay.
no.
There's some kind of
Um,
fucking like demonic movie where the grandma's possessed, and then they try to find her, and it's like almost like a first person camera shot. And you see the grandma.
that's an
like,
M Night Shyamalan movie, I think.
No, you're thinking
Yeah,
of The
that's what I'm
Visit,
thinking of.
Owen, but that's not what Lance is
damn
talking
it.
about. I'm not sure, but no, I'll do Hereditary, and then I think after that I'll end up doing Midsummer, and then because then after that I'll be ready to go for Friday or Nightmare on Elm Street. So.
Midsommar. I never watched Midsommar. I just remember Swedish people. And there's fucking maybe. Yeah,
Yeah.
awesome.
oh yeah. I read the synopsis on the movie. What is that one movie? Fuck, dude, it's based on like some kind of like Norwegian legend.
Based on a true
And it's this fucking like big antler beast in the fucking woods that kills these people running around. You see them, they're like gutted, and then there's like a
Oh,
village of
shit.
like
What
zombie people. It was on Netflix. I watched it with Savannah.
I know what you're talking about, but I cannot for the life of me think of the name of it right now.
That movie scared the fuck out of me the first time I watched it because the guy keeps having dreams about his friend getting shot in the gas station they're at. He didn't save him. Remember? Like he kept having those visions, and then like everybody else, one of his friends would disappear every time he'd wake up from the vision. Then you find like somebody's body like fucking eviscerated in front of them or some shit.
Yeah.
That movie scared the fuck. I watched it. It's not. It's called The Something, but that movie I thought it was a good movie. And he finally escapes. Like all of his friends end up getting killed, and then he gets through the fucking woods. Finally, turns around, and that fucking antler beast thing can't come out, and he just yells back at it. That movie was pretty fucking good. I wish I remembered the name of it though. But anyway. So this went 2 hours and 14 minutes, or in other words, the length of 2 Friday the 13th movies. If you've listened all the way, do what?
It'll probably be cut down by like 20 minutes because I think there's quite a bit that has to be trimmed out of this.
Probably so. But anyway, if you listened to this episode, thank you. If you like Friday the 13th, or you like dude bros talking about toxic masculinity in movies, or just off the rails conversations that we have, Follow us on YouTube at Filmoscopy Podcast, or Spotify at Filmoscopy Podcast, or Twitter at Filmoscopy Pod, or Facebook at Filmoscopy Podcast. Just look us up. We got the orange logo. All right, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, thank you, and good night.
Bum bum ba bum ba da da da. Boom ba 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 boom boom.